Good morning, everyone. Can I ask you, dear colleagues, to take your seats? Please take your seats. Let's start. I am pleased to welcome the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, to the European Parliament for the annual State of the European Union address. Thank you, dear Ursula, for being with us today and for your engagement with this House. In these unprecedented times, dear colleagues, we need clarity and we need resolve. We need a Europe that takes responsibility for its security, a Europe that makes it easier for businesses and that protects jobs by simplifying our processes and cutting unnecessary red tape, a Europe that is fairer for families, workers and women, that ensures safer streets for our children, and a Europe that stands up for the democratic values that define us on the world stage. When the world too often feels like it is on fire with Russia's aggression against Ukraine, the horrific situation in Gaza and the Middle East, a redefined transatlantic relationship and more engagement of Europe across the world, this Parliament and the people we represent are very eager to hear how Europe can step up with new and bold ideas. And I know that this, as always, will be a lively and energized debate, and that it will be based on mutual respect, protecting the dignity of this House. So, dear President, dear Ursula, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, President Metsola, Minister, honourable members. Europe is in a fight for a continent that is whole and at peace, for a free and independent Europe, a fight for our values and our democracies, a fight for our liberty and our ability to determine our destiny for ourselves. Make no mistake, this is a fight for our future. And I thought long and hard about whether to start this State of the Union address with such a stark appraisal. After all, us Europeans are not used to or comfortable with talking in such terms, because our union is fundamentally a peace project. But the truth is that the world of today is unforgiving, and we cannot varnish over the difficulties that Europeans feel every day. They can feel the ground shift beneath them. They can feel things getting harder, just as they are working harder. They can feel the impact of the global crisis, of the higher cost of living. They feel the speed of change affecting their lives and their careers. And they worry about the endless spiral of events they see on the news, from the devastating scenes in Gaza to the relentless Russian barrage on Ukraine. We simply cannot wait for this storm to pass. This summer showed us that there is simply no room or no time for nostalgia. Battle lines for a new world order based on power are being drawn right now. So yes, Europe must fight for its place in the world, in which many major powers are either ambivalent or openly hostile to Europe, a world of imperial ambitions and imperial wars, a world in which dependencies are ruthlessly weaponized, And it is for all these reasons that a new Europe must emerge. And honourable members, this must be Europe's independence moment. I believe this is our union's mission, to be able to take care of our own defence and security, to take control over the technologies and energies that will fuel our own economies, to decide what kind of society and democracy we want to live in, to be open to the world and choose partnerships with allies, old and new. Ultimately, it is about having the freedom and the power to determine our own destiny. And we know we can do it, because together we have shown what is possible when we have the same ambition, unity and urgency. I must say I've lost count of the number of times that I was told that Europe could not do this and could not do that, in the pandemic, on the recovery plan, on defence, on supporting Ukraine, on energy security, and the list goes on. Every time, Europe stood united and made it. And we need to do the same now. So, honourable members, the central question for us today is a simple one. Does Europe have the stomach to fight? Do we have the unity and the sense of urgency, the political will and the political skill to compromise? Or do we just want to fight between ourselves, be paralyzed by our divisions? That is what all of us have to answer. Every member state, every member of this House, every commissioner, all of us. And in my eyes, the choice is very clear. So my pitch today is a pitch for unity. Unity between member states. Unity between European institutions. Unity between the pro-European democratic forces of this House. I'm here, and the entire college is here, ready to make this happen with you, ready to strengthen the pro-European democratic majority, because it is the only one that can deliver for Europe. Honourable members, freedom and independence are what the people of Ukraine are fighting for every day. People like Sasha and his grandmother. Sasha was only 11 years old when the Russians attacked. He and his mother sought refuge in a basement in their town in Mariupol. One morning they went out to get some food, and that's when all hell broke loose. A rain of Russian bombs on a civilian neighborhood. All became dark and Sasha felt his face burning. He had shrapnel just below his eyes. In a matter of days, Russian soldiers stormed the city. They took Sasha and his mom to what the Russians called a filtration camp. Then Sasha was taken away. They told him he didn't need his mom. He would go to Russia and have another Russian mother, a Russian passport, a Russian name. They sent him to occupied Donetsk. But Sasha did not give up. On a stop on the way, he asked to borrow a stranger's phone. And he called his grandma, Ludmila, who was living in free Ukraine. Baba, just take me home. She didn't hesitate a second. Her friends told her she was crazy to go, but Ludmila moved mountains to get to him. And with the help of the Ukrainian government, she traveled to Poland, to Lithuania, to Latvia, Russia, and finally into occupied Ukraine. She got Sasha back, and through the same long journey brought him to safety. but their hearts are still broken. Every single day they keep fighting to find Sasha's mom, stuck somewhere by Russia's brutal war. I would like to thank Sasha and Ludmila for allowing me to share their story. I'm honored that they are here with us today, and honorable members, please join me in paying tribute to Sasha, to Ludmila, and to Ukraine's relentless fight for freedom. Just stand up. Stand up. Stand up. Sadly, Sasha's story is far from unique. There are tens of thousands more Ukrainian children whose fate is unknown, trapped, threatened, forced to deny their identities. We must do everything in our power to support Ukraine's children. And that is why I can announce that, together with Ukraine and other partners, I will host a summit of the International Coalition for the Return of Ukrainian Children. Every abducted child must be returned. Honourable members, this war needs to end with a just and lasting peace for Ukraine. Because Ukraine's freedom is Europe's freedom. The images in Alaska were not easy to digest. But just a few days later, European leaders came to Washington to support President Zelensky and secure commitments. Real progress has been made since then. Just last week, 26 countries in the coalition of the willing said they were ready to be part of a reassurance force in Ukraine or participate financially in the context of a ceasefire. We will continue to support all diplomatic efforts to end this war. But we have all seen what Russia means by diplomacy. Putin refuses to meet President Zelensky. Last week, Russia launched the largest number of drones and ballistic missiles in a single attack. Yesterday, there was a missile attack on a village in Donetsk, targeting people waiting to pick up their pensions. More than 20 were killed. And just today, we have seen a reckless and unprecedented violation of Poland and Europe's airspace by more than 10 Russian Shahid drones. Europe stands in full solidarity with Poland. Putin's message is clear, and our response must be clear too. We need more pressure on Russia to come to the negotiation table. We need more sanctions. We are now working on the 19th package in coordination with partners. We're particularly looking at phasing out Russian fossil fuels faster. We're looking at the shadow fleet and at third countries. And at the same time, we need more support for Ukraine. No one has contributed as much as Europe. Close to 170 billion euros of military and financial aid so far, and more will be needed. And it should not only be European taxpayers who bear the brunt of this. This is Russia's war, and it is Russia that should pay. And this is why we need to work urgently on a new solution to finance Ukraine's war response and effort on the basis of the immobilized Russian assets. With the cash balances associated to these Russian assets, we can provide Ukraine with a reparations loan. The assets themselves will not be touched, and the risk will have to be carried collectively. Ukraine will only pay back the loan once Russia pays for the reparations. The money will help Ukrainians already today, but also be crucial in the mid and long term for Ukraine's safety. For example, funding the strong Ukrainian armed forces as the first line of security guarantees. So we will propose a new program. We call it Qualitative Military Edge. It will support investment in the capabilities of the Ukrainian armed forces. Take drones, for example. Before the war, Ukraine had no drones. Today, Ukraine's use of drones, it is Ukraine's use of drones that is accounting for over 2/3 of Russian equipment losses. It is a reminder of the power of human ingenuity in our open societies. But we also know that Russia is catching up fast, supported by the Iranian Shahid drones. And it is seizing the advantage of industrial mass production. Saturday, in one single night, Russia sent 800 drones to Ukraine in one single night. So, ingenuity helped to open a door for Ukraine's defense, but raw industrial might, on the other side, may threaten to sweep it closed. So we can use our industrial strength to support Ukraine to counter this drone warfare. We can help transform Ukrainian ingenuity into battlefield advantage and into joint industrialization. And this is why I can also announce that Europe will front-load 6 billion euros from the ERA loan and enter into a drone alliance with Ukraine. Ukraine has the ingenuity. What it needs now is scale. And together we can provide it so that Ukraine keeps its edge and Europe strengthens its own. Mesdames et Messieurs,
Honourable members, Putin's war economy will not stop, even if the war does. That means Europe must be ready to take responsibility for its own security. Of course, NATO will always be essential, but only a strong and credible European defence posture will be able to guarantee our security. We have made historic progress in recent years to build our European Defence Union. Earlier this year, we launched Readiness 2030, which could unlock up to 800 billion euros of defence investment. This includes the SAFE programme that is now ready to provide 150 billion euros for joint procurement. 19 member states have already applied. The programme is already at full capacity. That's good news. We are also working to find a way to grant a bonus to those who support Ukraine or buy Ukrainian equipment. This is emergency financial assistance responding to an urgent need. Last week, I saw this for myself when I visited frontline member states. They know best the threat that Russia poses. And there is no doubt, Europe's eastern flank keeps all of Europe safe, from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea. This is why we must invest in supporting it through an Eastern Flank Watch. This means giving Europe independent strategic capabilities. We must invest in real-time space surveillance so that no movement of forces goes unseen. We must heed the call of our Baltic friends and build a drone wall. This is not an abstract ambition. It is the bedrock of credible defence. A European capability developed together, deployed together and sustained together that can respond in real time. One that leaves no ambiguity as to our intentions. Europe will defend every inch of its territory, ladies and gentlemen. In every country I visited, I heard the same message. There is no time to waste. At the next European Council, we will therefore present a clear roadmap for getting new common defence projects off the ground, for setting clear goals for 2030, and for creating a European defence semester. Because 2030 is tomorrow, and it's today that Europe must get ready.
Members, when we talk about independence, we're talking about choosing our destiny. That is what Ukraine is fighting for. And that is what all Europeans deserve. Because Europe is an idea, the idea of freedom and mutual strength. This was the idea that drove the post-1989 generation, when East and West came together. And it is as powerful now as it was then. And this is why we're bringing future member states closer to our union, investing, supporting reforms, integrating into the single market. We must keep up the speed on this merits-based process, because only a united, I would even say a reunited Europe can be an independent Europe. A larger and stronger union is a security guarantee for all of us. And because for Ukraine, for Moldova, and for the Western Balkans, their futures in our union, let's make the next reunification of Europe happen together. Honourable members, what is happening in Gaza has shaken the conscience of the world. People killed while begging for food. Mothers holding lifeless babies. These images are simply catastrophic. So I want to start with a very clear message. Man-made famine can never be a weapon of war. For the sake of the children, for the sake of humanity, this must stop. This is also part of a more systematic shift in the last month that is simply unacceptable. We have seen the financial suffocation of the Palestinian Authority. The plans for settlement project in the so-called E1 era, which would easily cut off the occupied West Bank from East Jerusalem. The actions and statements by the most extremist ministers of the Israeli government, which incite violence. All of this points to a clear attempt to undermine the two-state solution, to undermine the vision of a viable Palestinian state, and we must not let this happen. And, honourable member, it truly pains me to say these words, and I know that for many citizens, Europe's inability to agree on a common way forward is equally painful. They are asking how much worse things must get before there is unity in response. I understand, because what is happening in Gaza is unacceptable, and because Europe must lead the way, just as it has done before. Our financial support and humanitarian aid far outweigh that of any other partner. Our commitment to a viable Palestinian Authority is keeping the two-state solution alive, and we must urge others to urgently step up too, both in the region and beyond. But, of course, Europe needs to do more. Many member states have moved ahead on their own. On our side, we proposed to suspend parts of our Horizon funding, but this is stuck without a majority. We must overcome this. We cannot afford to be paralyzed. And this is why I will propose a package of measures to carve out a way forward. First, the Commission will do all that it can do on its own. We will put our bilateral support to Israel on hold. We will stop all payments in these areas without affecting our work with Israeli civil society or Yad Vashem. Second, we will make 2 further proposals to the Council. We will propose sanctions on the extremist ministers and on violent settlers. And we will also propose a partial suspension of the association agreement on trade-related matters. I am aware it will be difficult to find majorities, and I know that any action will be too much for one and too little for others. But we must all take our own responsibility: Parliament, Council, Commission. My third point: we will set up a Palestine donor group next month, including a dedicated instrument for Gaza reconstruction. This will be an international effort with regional partners, and it will build on the momentum of the New York conference organized by France and Saudi Arabia. Honourable members, I am a long-standing friend of the people of Israel. I know how much the atrocious attacks on October 7th by Hamas terrorists shook the nation to its core. The hostages have now been held captive by Hamas terrorists for more than 700 days since October 7th. That is 700 days of pain and suffering. There can never be any place for Hamas, neither now nor in future, because they are terrorists who want to destroy Israel. They are also inflicting terror on their own people, keeping their future hostage. Europe's goal has always been the same: real security for Israel and a safe present and future for all Palestinians. And that means that hostages must be released, that there should be unrestrained access to all humanitarian aid, and that there must be an immediate ceasefire. But in the longer term, the only realistic peace plan is based on 2 states. living side by side in peace and security, with a secure Israel, a viable Palestinian Authority, and the scourge of Hamas removed. That is what Europe has always stood for, and it is time to come together and help make this happen. Honourable members, the transition is now hard. I want to speak about competitiveness. I know, but this is a State of the Union, and competitiveness is a central piece of our European Union. Europe's independence will depend on its ability to compete in today's turbulent times. We have everything it takes to thrive here in Europe, from our single market to our social market economy. But we know the economic and geopolitical headwinds are strong, and I just talked about it. And we have seen how dependency can be used against us. And this is why we will massively invest in digital and clean tech. With more to come in our future Competitiveness Fund and a doubled horizon, our research and innovation program, and we are tackling the key bottlenecks identified by the Draghi report. That's from energy to capital, from investment to simplification. We have held strategic dialogues with key industries: cars, chemicals, steel, pharmaceuticals, defense, agriculture. In each sector, the message is the same. To protect jobs, we need to make business in Europe easier. A digital euro, for example, will make it easier for companies and consumers alike. And the omnibuses we have put on the table so far will make a real difference. Less paperwork, less overlaps, less complex rules. Our proposal will cut 8 billion euros per year. 8 billion cut of bureaucratic costs for European companies. And further omnibuses are on their way, for example, on military mobility or on the digital. For innovative companies, we are preparing the so-called 28th regime and speeding up the work on the Savings and Investment Union. Because we have many high-potential startups in key technologies like quantum, AI, and biotech, but as they grow, the limited availability of risk capital forces them to turn to foreign investors. And this is wealth and jobs going elsewhere. And it jeopardizes our tech sovereignty. This is why the Commission will partner with private investors on a multi-billion euro Scale-up Europe fund. It will help make major investments in young, fast-growing companies in critical tech areas, because we want the best of Europe to choose Europe. And honourable members, our greatest asset is the single market. But we all know it remains unfinished. The IMF estimates that the internal barriers within the single market are equivalent to a 45% tariff on goods and even a 100% tariff on services. Just think of what we are missing out on. And as underscored by the latter report, the single market remains incomplete, mostly in 3 domains: finance, energy, and telecommunications. So we need clear political deadlines. And this is why I will present a single market roadmap to 2028 on capital, on services, on energy, on telecoms, on the 28th regime, and the 5th, freedom for knowledge and innovation. Because we all know the old saying, only what gets measured gets done. Honourable members, this will also support our investment in the technologies that will fuel our economy, clean and digital. Take artificial intelligence. A European AI is essential for our future independence. It will help power our industry and our societies, be it healthcare or be it defense, you name it. So, we will focus on the first key building blocks. That's from the Cloud and AI Development Act to the Quantum Sandbox. We are massively investing in the European AI gigafactories because these gigafactories support our innovative startups so that these startups can train, develop, and deploy their models, their next generation AI models in these gigafactories. And when we called on the private sector to join forces with us, the response was overwhelming. Later today, I will meet CEOs from some of the largest European tech companies. They will hand over their European AI and tech declaration, and this is their commitment to invest in Europe's tech sovereignty, and I'm absolutely grateful for that. This is the way it should go in the European Union. And we must also take the same approach on clean tech, from steel to batteries. Europe's clean tech sector must stay in Europe, and we have to take urgent action. With the Clean Industrial Deal, we have identified the main hurdles that slow down these sectors. So now we need to speed up with the implementation, because investors, of course, want to know that if they invest, there will be a demand for clean European products on the other hand. And this is why lead markets must be at the heart of our action, to spark a virtuous cycle where both supply and demand go up and prices go down. On the supply side, we will launch a battery booster package. This will put 1.8 billion euros up for equity to boost production in Europe. You know that batteries are key enablers of other clean tech, especially electric vehicles. So this goes to the heart of our economic independence. On the demand side, we must urgently drive demand for European industrial leadership in clean tech. And this is why we will introduce a Made in Europe criteria in public procurement. And when we invest in Global Gateway, for example, we set strong incentives for partners to buy European. I'm convinced the future of clean tech will continue to be made in Europe. But for that, we also need to make sure that our industry has the materials here in Europe. And the only answer here is creating a truly circular economy. So, we must move fast on the Circular Economy Act and move ahead in those sectors that are ready. And finally, we need to keep the speed. So the Commission will propose an Industrial Accelerator Act for the key strategic sectors and technologies. In sum, when it comes to digital and clean tech, we have to be faster, smarter, and we have to be more European. Honourable members, already today, low-carbon sources account for over 70% of our electricity. We are global leaders in clean tech patents, better than the United States, racing with China. When it comes to venture capital for clean tech, we are catching up with the United States and way ahead of China. We're firmly on track to achieve our 2030 targets to cut emissions by at least 55%. This is the power of the European Green Deal, and we must stay the course on our climate and environmental goals. This is a must, honourable members. And the science is very clear. And the economic and security case is equally compelling. In fact, This transformation is central to our push for independence because it reduces our energy dependency, because circular production limits our strategic dependencies, and because it creates front-runner industries that can export the solutions to others. When I speak to the Global South, from Africa to India to the Central Asia, they are looking for solutions. These are rapidly evolving markets, and the jury is still out for who will dominate these markets of the future. We are the ones who can meet the growing demand for solutions, but it's not a given. And this is why the Commission proposed the 2040 targets, 10 years after the Paris Agreement. I know that many people are concerned about the scale of what is needed and what is ahead. And that is why the transition must support people, it must strengthen industry. This also means massive boosting of public and private investment, creating lead markets for circular and clean products. That delivers jobs and that delivers investment in Europe. Ensuring a just transition for all, for example, with a social climate fund, and securing the global level playing field, notably by promoting carbon pricing. Europe must protect its industries. They are doing the right thing to decarbonize, and they should be rewarded and incentivized. We otherwise risk relying again on imports to Europe, imports for the steel that our car makers need, or imports for the fertilizer that our farmers need. And that means we would be at the mercy of price, volume, and quality that others are willing and able to provide. Take steel and other metals. Global overcapacity is squeezing margins and leaving little incentives to pay a clean premium. So this makes it harder for Europe's steel industry to invest in decarbonization. That is why the Commission will propose a new long-term trade instrument to succeed the expiring steel safeguards. Europe will always remain open. We like competition, but we will always protect our industry from unfair competition. Honourable members, when we talk about competitiveness, we talk about jobs. We're talking about people and their livelihood. So the bottom line is that workers must be empowered if we are to have a competitive economy. And that is why we will propose a Quality Jobs Act to ensure that modern employment keeps pace with the modern economy. And this is important because we know how hard times have been for so many families, how costs have rocketed up, how people are making sacrifices to make ends meet. This is a matter of basic social justice. This is why we urgently need an ambitious European anti-poverty strategy. We will lay out our plan to help eradicate poverty by 2050, backed by a strong child guarantee to shield our children from poverty. And we will also put forward a series of packages on affordability and the cost of living. Allow me to give you 4 telling examples. The first is energy. When the energy costs rise, it is not just a number on the bill. It is every single part of people's life that is affected. So at the height of the energy crisis in the last years, Europe acted. And thanks to that common effort, we quickly managed to stabilize prices and secure supply. We are now on the path to energy independence. But energy bills are still a real source of anxiety for millions of Europeans, and costs are still structurally too high for industry. We know what drove prices up. That was dependency on Russian fossil fuels. So it's time to get rid of dirty Russian fossil fuels completely. And we know what brings prices down, and that is clean, homegrown energy. We need to generate more homegrown renewables with nuclear as a base load, but we also need to urgently modernize and invest in our infrastructure and our interconnectors. This is why we will propose a new grids package to strengthen our grid infrastructure and speed up permitting. And to go with that, I'm presenting today a new initiative called Energy Highways. We have identified 8 critical bottlenecks in our energy infrastructure that goes from the Øresund Strait to the Sicilian Canal. We will now work to remove these bottlenecks one by one. We will bring governments and utilities together to address all outstanding issues, because Europeans need affordable energy right now. And honourable members, a home is not just 4 walls and a roof. It is safety. It is warmth. It's a place for family and friends. It is belonging. But for too many Europeans today, home has become a source of anxiety. It can mean debts and uncertainty. The numbers tell a painful truth. House prices are up by more than 20% since 2015. Building permits down by over 20% in 5 years. This is more than a housing crisis. This is a social crisis. It tears Europe's social fabric. It weakens our cohesion, and it also threatens our competitiveness. Nurses, teachers, and firemen cannot afford to live where they serve. Students drop out because they cannot pay the rent. Young people delay starting families. This is why still this year, after receiving your input, we will present the first ever European affordable housing plan to make housing more affordable, more sustainable, and of better quality. It will be a European effort anchored in local realities. We need a radical overhaul of the way we tackle this issue. We need to revise our state aid rules to enable housing support measures. We need to make it much easier to build new houses and student residences. And we will also propose a legal initiative on short-term rentals to tackle the remaining issues. So we need all of society, all lawmakers, all stakeholders to come together. And in this spirit, we will convene the first European Housing Summit to ensure it is at the top of our agenda. Honourable Member, housing is a dignity. It is about fairness. It is about Europe's future. 8 years ago, the European Pillar of Social Rights made housing a social right in Europe. So it's time to turn this promise now into reality. The third example I would like to highlight is cars. Cars are the pillar of our economy and industry. They are our European pride. Millions of jobs depend on it. Earlier this year, we gave the sector more flexibility to reach their 2025 targets. This is working. And with respect for technology neutrality, we are now preparing the 2035 review. Millions of Europeans want to buy affordable European cars. So we should invest in small, affordable cars, both for the European market, but also to meet the surge that we see in the global demand. And this is why we will propose to work with industry on a new small, affordable car initiative. I believe Europe should have its own e-car. E for environmental, clean, efficient and lightweight. E for economical, affordable for people. E for European, built here in Europe with European supply chains, because we cannot let China and others conquer this market. No matter what, we all know the future will be electric, and Europe will be a part of it. The future of cars and the cars of the future must be made here in Europe. Honourable Member, the final example I want to highlight is linked to food. In Europe, we have access to high-quality food that our outstanding farmers and fishers produce at affordable prices. They are also the custodians of our lands and oceans, our biodiversity, the key to our food security. But they are facing headwinds from high input costs to red tape or unfair competition. We're acting on all those fronts. We have simplified the CAP, less paperwork, more trust. We have ring-fenced income support in the next MFF and made sure that funding can be topped up by national and regional envelopes. But our farmers need fair competition and a level playing field. This is essential. And this is why we have robust safeguards in our trade deal with Mercosur, backed up by funding if compensation is needed. We also need to strengthen the position of farmers in the food chain. For too long, their hard work has not paid off as it should. Farmers have a right to a fair price for their food and a fair profit for their families. We will therefore review the implementation of our unfair trading practices legislation and take action wherever it is needed. And I can announce today that we will boost our promotion budget to launch a new Buy European Food campaign, because we can proudly say that our European food is the best in the world. Honourable Members, when we talk about competitiveness and independence, we must talk about our relations with the United States. I've heard many things about the deal agreed in summer. I understand the initial reactions, so allow me to be as clear as I can. Our trading relationship with the United States is our most important. We export over 500 billion euros worth of goods every year. Millions of jobs depend on it. And as President of the Commission, I will never gamble with people's jobs and livelihoods. This is why we did a deal to keep market access for our industries. And we ensured that Europe got the best possible deal out there. We have put our companies at a relative advantage because some of our direct competitors face much higher tariffs from the US. Yes, their baseline might be lower, but when you account for the exceptions that we secured and the additional rates which others have on top, we have the best agreement without any doubt. But I want also to be crystal clear on one point. Whether on environmental or digital regulation, we set our own standards, we set our own regulation. Europe will always decide for itself. And honourable members, I do not believe in tariffs. Tariffs are taxes. But the deal provides crucial stability in our relations with the United States at a time of grave global insecurity. Think of the repercussions of a full-fledged trade war with the United States. Picture the chaos, and then put that image next to the one from China just last week. China flanked by the leaders from Russia and North Korea. Putin gloating about how Russia-China relations are at an unprecedented high. None of this is a great surprise, but it reflects the changing landscape, and it creates two imperatives for Europe's independence push and its place in the world. The first is that we need to double down on diversification and on partnerships. 80% of our trade is with countries other than the United States. So we need to capitalize now on these new opportunities. And at a time where the global trading system is crumbling, we're securing the global rules through bilateral agreements like Mexico, like Mercosur, or finalizing negotiations on a historic deal with India by the end of the year. We will also build a coalition of like-minded countries to reform the global trading system, like with the CPTPP countries, because trade allows us to strengthen our supply chains, open our markets, reduce dependencies. Ultimately, it is about enhancing our economic security. The world wants to choose Europe, and we need to do business with the world. My second imperative is for Europe to step up where others have stepped away. Take research. Science has no passport, no gender, no ethnicity, and no political color. It is one of the most valuable global goods. And this is why the Commission announced the Choose Europe package of 500 million euros to attract and retain the best scientists and researchers. And Europe must also take the lead on global health. We are on the brink, if not even at the start, of another global health crisis. And as a medical doctor by training, I'm appalled by the disinformation that threatens global progress on everything from measles to polio. And this is why today I can announce that the European Union will head a new global health resilience initiative, because the world is looking to Europe and Europe is ready to lead. Honourable members, Europe's independence is about protecting our freedoms. And this is very important because these freedoms, this shouting side of the House should listen very carefully. Listen very carefully.
Can you please stop? Can you please stop? Please.
Listen very carefully about the freedoms, the freedom to decide, the freedom to speak out, to move around the whole continent, the freedom to vote, to love, to pray, to live in a union of equality. Our democracy and the rule of law are the guarantors of those freedoms. This is why we have done so much to strengthen our tools and step up enforcement. We built a new rule of law cycle that ensures that problems are detected early and solved through engagement. We need an integrated annual cycle of the rule of law, a common rhythm, clear milestones, and contributions from all institutions. And our focus must be to close the existing loopholes. We have strengthened the link between funds and the respect of the rule of law, and with the next long-term budget, we will go even further. Respecting the rule of law is a must for European funds now and in future. And honourable members, the rise in information manipulation and disinformation, as we hear, is dividing our societies. It is not only eroding trust in the truth, but also in democracy itself. This is why we urgently need the European Democracy Shield. We need more capacity to monitor and detect information manipulation and disinformation. So we will set up a new European Centre for Democratic Resilience. This will bring together the expertise and capacity of member states and neighbouring countries. You obviously are fearing this new centre.
Okay, I understand that shouting has become a little bit of a tradition. Can you listen, please, to this discussion, and then you'll have the time to speak?
In some communities across Europe, traditional media are struggling. In many rural areas, the days of going out for a local paper is a nostalgic memory. This has created many news deserts where disinformation thrives, and this is so dangerous for our democracy, because informed citizens who can trust what they read and hear are essential to keep those in power accountable. And when independent media is dismantled or neutralized, our ability to monitor corruption and preserve democracy is severely weakened. This is why the first step, listen careful, this is why the first step in an autocrat's playbook is always to capture independent media, because this enables backsliding and corruption to happen in the dark. So we need to do more to protect our media and our independent press. And this is why we will launch a new media resilience program. And this media resilience program will support independent journalism and media literacy, but we also need to invest to address some of the root causes of this threat. This is why in the next budget we have proposed to significantly boost funding for media. We also need to enable private equity. We will therefore use our tools to support independent and local media. A free press is the backbone of any democracy, and we will support Europe's press to remain free despite your shouting. Honourable members, another important point.
Okay, Ms. Schneider, please. We have been very fair and understanding, but this is your last warning. Shouting again and you leave the chamber.
Let's have a look at social media. It has many, many benefits for connecting people. But I would like to raise one very specific topic. And this is the effects of giving our children unfettered access to social media. As a mother of 7 and a grandmother of 4, I feel the anxiety of parents who are doing their best to keep their children safe. These parents worry that when their children pick up a phone, they could be exposed to the wide-ranging dangers simply with a scroll. Online bullying, adult content, promoting self-harm, and algorithms that prey on children's vulnerabilities with the explicit purpose of creating addictions. Too often, mums and dads feel powerless and helpless, that they are drowning against the tsunami of big tech flooding their family homes. I strongly believe that parents, not algorithms, should be raising our children. and their voice must be heard. This is why today I'm here to tell you that I'm listening. Just as in my days, we as a society taught our children that they could not smoke, drink, or watch adult content until a certain age. I believe it is time we consider doing the same for social media. Our friends in Australia are pioneering a social media restriction. I'm watching the implementation of their policy closely to see what next steps we can take here in Europe. I will commission a panel of experts to advise me by the end of this year on the best approach for Europe. We'll approach this carefully and listen to everyone. And in all of this work, we will be guided by the need to empower parents and to build a safer Europe for our children. Because when it comes to kids' safety online, Europe believes in parents and not in profits. Meine Damen und
Honourable members, our most important task is to protect our democracy. But to do so, we must also show that democracy offers solutions to people's legitimate concerns, and nowhere is that more evident in the context of migration. That is why we have proposed to treble funding for migration and border management in the next budget, so that we can manage migration effectively and protect our external borders. But more is clearly needed. The people of Europe have shown that they are willing to help those fleeing war and persecution. But there is a growing sense of frustration stemming from their impression that our rules are being ignored. That is why we need to step up our efforts. We need a system that is humane, but we must not be naive about it. We must be serious about returning rejected asylum seekers to their home countries. We cannot have a situation where only 20% of those who are not allowed to stay actually leave Europe. We therefore need to agree quickly on the common European system for returns. We have no more time to lose. And we must also ensure that we fully implement the Pact on Migration and Asylum as soon as it enters into force. The Pact is strict but fair, and it will only work if everyone plays their part, member states from the north, the south, east and west. Of course, we will always fulfill our international obligations. We've done it in the past, we're doing it today, and we'll do it in the future. But we in Europe must be the ones to decide who comes to us and in what circumstances, not the people smugglers and traffickers. The smugglers and traffickers are making millions and millions with their cynical, false and fatal promises. That is why we must break their business model. It is true that the numbers are falling, but too many people are still trying to cross the border illegally and dying on the way. We must work together with social media platforms to put an end to the online organisation and advertising of smuggling operations. We must work more closely with airlines, especially on problematic routes, such as those to Belarus. And it is only by going after the money that we will be able to track down the criminal networks and cut off their sources of funding. And we need a new system of sanctions specifically targeted at people smugglers and traffickers, to freeze their assets, to restrict their ability to move around, to cut off their profits. People smuggling is a horrible, criminal business, and no smuggler or trafficker should be allowed to get away with it in Europe.
Honourable Member, the point I want to make is simple. If it matters to Europeans, it matters to Europe. This is our enduring duty to deliver. This summer, we all saw the pictures of Europe's forests and villages on fire. More than 1 million hectares were burned. An area around 1/3 of the size of Belgium. The scale of the damage is enormous. And we know it is not a one-off. Climate change is making each summer hotter, harsher, and more dangerous. And this is why we have to radically step up our efforts into climate resilience and adaptations and nature-based solutions. But we must also give ourselves the tools to respond. And this is why we will propose to create a new European firefighting hub based in Cyprus, which could also support our regional neighbors. We know the difference our civil protection mechanism can make. Just over the summer, 760 brave Europeans were sent to all corners of Europe, literally running towards the flames. And I would like to conclude my speech with a tribute to them. The firefighters, the pilots, the crews, everyone stepped up. And I would like to tell you the story of a group of 20 Greek rangers. They are specialists in taming the fiercest of forest fires. When the fires erupted in the Asturias region, Spain called Europe for help. And Greece answered the call. The flames were so vast, the smoke could be seen from space. But for 5 days, these 20 Greek rangers stood shoulder to shoulder with their Spanish colleagues. As the flames swept closer to the village of Genestoso, they fought day and night to contain the inferno. And in the end, together, they tamed the fire and the village was saved. And honorable members, it is such an honor to welcome one of these heroes today. The leader of the Greek team, Lieutenant Nikolaios Paisios. Lieutenant, dear Nikolaios, your courage is an inspiration to all of us. Honourable members, this is Europe as one community. This is the Europe that I love and that you love, we all love. This is the Europe that we must protect at all costs, and we must do that together. I want to work with this House and with all pro-European democratic forces to deliver for Europe. I'm working on legislative packages to empower this pro-European majority. And I'm so delighted, dear Roberta, that we have managed to renew the framework agreement between the Commission and the Parliament. This will only strengthen our cooperation. And it will be an enabler for us to work on the real reforms that are needed. Because I support the right of initiative of the European Parliament. And I believe that we need to move. I believe that we need to move to qualified majorities in some areas, for example, in foreign policy. It is time to break free from the shackles of unanimity. The point is that we need to make sure that our union is faster and can deliver. Because this is how we can win the fight together, to deliver Europe's independence moments. And let's remember that we have always had to fight for our freedoms, for the generation that fought hard and hand in hand across our continent, to the underground press that kept the flame of freedom alive, across Central and Eastern Europe during the Cold War, or the forest brothers in the Baltics who resisted Soviet oppression at every turn. This struggle, this fight, is deeply ingrained in who we are as Europeans. 80 years ago, our continent was hell on earth. 40 years ago, our continent was divided by a wall. But on each occasion, Europeans decided to fight for a better future, to make itself whole and to make the whole strong. And that is what I will strive for every single day with you, honourable members. Long live Europe. Thank you so much.
Thank you, President von der Leyen. And now we move to the speakers for the political groups, starting with the chair of the EPP group, Manfred Weber. Can I please ask you to take your seats? Go ahead, Mr. Weber.
Madam President of Parliament, President of the European Commission, dear colleagues, this summer was not an easy summer for Europe. It was Alaska, a missing Europe. It was Gaza, a totally split Europe. It was the US trade deal, not easy, forest fires, Draghi criticizing the economic policy poo. It was really not easy. And it's now easy to stand here in this plenary and criticize. I think a lot of colleagues after me will do so. They criticize Commission, Commission President, Council. I will not do like this. I believe we only can win trust if we trust in us. And that's why my first message is that people can count on what EPP promised in the election campaign. We voted in Bucharest for our projects, for our priorities. We won the elections, and the Commission is now delivering. A fleet of omnibuses started. A return regulation is on the table. SAFE programme on defence. We have 18 sanction packages and the Tunisian agreement, and the fence in Greece and Poland are protecting our external border. We have illegal migration numbers reduced by 80%. A lot happened in the last month. It's not perfect at all, but we start to deliver, and I want to thank the Euro Commission for their work. We are attacked as EPP from the left that we are too right, from the right extreme that we are too left, but I tell you, we will seriously and decisively continue to deliver. Content, content, content. That's what counts for EPP. Autumn, dear friends, will be a moment of truth for us now in the Parliament. The legislation arrives on our desk, and the guiding principle for us is responsibility. And that's why we will support the US trade agreement. I understood that in the Inter Committee a lot of colleagues criticized. EPP was the only group who supported the outcome of Scotland. I don't like to have 50% tariffs. I would like to talk about 0%, about TTIP. It was opposed by the left in these times when we discussed it. But what is the alternative to Scotland? A trade war with the US? Responsibility means also to stand here and say yes to Mercosur with the proper safeguards for our farmers. We want to have more of these further agreements with Mexico, already presented, India, Indonesia. We have partners who still believe in a rule-based trade order in the world. Mercosur is for us an anti-Trump agreement to show that rule-based approach works. And if we refuse Mercosur, we push South America to China. I know defending Mercosur is not popular, but it's responsible and it is honest to tell it to the people. And speaking about jobs, last year we lost around 90,000 jobs in the European car industry. 90,000 families. We speak as EPP with trade unions. We speak with the CEOs from the car sector, and everybody tells us we need an ambitious climate approach, but also a realistic one. In this moment of time, whole industries in Europe are dying. That's a reality on the ground. We support an ambitious climate approach for 2050, no doubt about this. But we need a technologically neutral approach nuclear energy, combustion engine, and we have to screen the legislation on practicability. That is what we have to do, and we have to do it fast. Dear friends, more single market, more flagship projects, more investments, more digital. We all agreed in this House on the Draghi agenda, and now Draghi is asking us, what are you waiting for in this moment of time? Socialists, I have to say, voted in the Ample Committee against the omnibus, for the rejection of the omnibus proposals. And I listened that also, Irache, you said publicly that socialists take the US trade agreement into question. You don't know whether you will support it or not. I tell you, this behavior is splitting the platform. This is exactly what is harming the European agenda. We have to deliver now, and that's why we have to be honest in this plenary now. Prime Minister Frederiksen, a socialist leader, stood here in July and presented the agenda for the Danish presidency. She spoke about competitiveness, about stopping illegal migration and security. Key pillars. She asked us to be strong on less bureaucracy and migration. There are two sides of the socialist reality, I have to say. There is the socialists of Sanchez and there is the socialists of Frederiksen in today's Europe. And I hope that we don't see the Spanish political reality spreading to Europe. I tell you, nearly all votes during this week proposed CBAM, Future of Agriculture Policy, Public Procurement, Waste Directive, all votes this week are based on a platform agreement on the committees. That's a reality in our House. It works. Europe does not need another ideological fight in the center. What we need now are solutions. And we have to act fast, dear colleagues. On the return regulation, Frederiksen again, asking us to be partner for the Danish presidency. On the return regulation, Commission presented the regulation in the first 100 days in office. And it took another 100 days to nominate a rapporteur in the European Parliament. And now we have foreseen the return regulation vote in December, at the end of the Danish presidency. Sorry, dear colleagues, that's not the way how we should work. We must speed up. People ask from us solutions in this moment of time. And allow me to underline also on the historic moment we are in. Ukraine confirmed, the Alaska event confirmed that the red carpet for Putin ends up in the most brutal attacks against civilians we ever saw. That's a reality. And on Gaza, enough is enough. Hamas is a terrorist organization, no doubt about this, but hunger can never be a weapon. The reality of summer, dear friends, in these historic issues is that we are, as Europeans, alone in a stormy world order. Nobody on global stage is currently listening to us. I said it, on Gaza, totally split Europe. So how can we change this? Dear colleagues, the idea that national sovereignty exists is a Potemkin's village. It is not real. Kohl, Mitterrand and Delors understood this reality on economic terms. They created the single market and the euro. They made us strong. European integration not revocable. And now Merz, Macron, Tusk and all the others must create the same for foreign affairs and for defense, to bring the European integration another step forward and make it non-revocable, as our Commission President presented today. We cannot allow Orban and crazy Fico that they turn the European Union into a foolish organization, dear colleagues. And just a final point on the nationalists, because we are attacked from both sides. One word to the nationalists at the end. The nationalists here in this House applaud to America first. They are friends of American tech billionaire Musk. They are friends. Nationalists applaud to America first. And they are friends of American tech billionaire like Musk. They follow the agenda of the tech money. The reality is nationalists are not patriots. They turn Europe into a colony of Silicon Valley and Washington, even worse, of Moscow. And that's why we will never allow this, dear friends, never allow this. We love Europe. We love the European way of life. Europe is not weak. Europe is as strong as we make it. And that's why Europe must lead now. We are in front of a Europeans' autumn of truth. The EPP is ready.
Now, I give the floor to the chair of the S&D Group, Irache Garcia Perez.
Gracias, Presidenta.
Thank you, Madam President. President von der Leyen. President von der Leyen, sorry, terribly sorry, but here it has been made very clear who your main enemy is, Mr. Weber and the European People's Party. You did your best. You did what you could today to try to bring a work programme to us here today for all pro-European forces to rally together behind it. You did your best, but now you can see who is responsible for the European alliance and platform not working in this House. And that problem has a name, Manfred Weber and European People's Party. Today, we heard you call for urgency and unity, but the question echoing through the streets of Europe is another one. Where is Europe? Because the urgency and unity which we need cannot come at the expense of ambition or the interests of European citizens. Where was Europe when you signed an unfair deal with Trump? Accepting 15% tariffs without any retaliation is unacceptable. Promising the US hundreds of billions of euros of oil and gas purchases and defence investment without the authority to do so is an abuse of power. You went to Scotland to bury the Draghi and Letta reports and our strategic autonomy under a golf course. Let me remind you where you should be investing. Here in Europe, €800 billion a year in common debt to finance the green transition, digital transformation, defence and the social model. Our position is clear. We will amend the agreement. We will demand that US producers comply with the same standards that we require in the Union, because farmers cannot be the losers in your pact with Trump. And if Trump continues his trade war against our digital laws, we must activate the anti-coercion instrument. Ms. von der Leyen, where is Europe when Gaza is dying every day? More than 64,000 Palestinians killed, 2 million displaced, homes, hospitals and schools razed to the ground, famine used as a weapon of war, children machine-gunned while searching for food. I would have liked to invite Ignaz Bayath here today, a Palestinian child, or one of the families of a Palestinian journalist who has been killed, and those of children killed looking for food, because behind every individual story, Salma, Rahim, Mohammed, the list goes on. There are thousands and thousands of children whose voices we will never hear again. They died in a massacre perpetrated by the Israeli government. We have waited too long. We heard your proposals. We heard your presentation of proposals that we should withdraw from the agreement. We call for a complete break with the agreement. We welcome those steps, but they come too late. So many lives have been lost. We have to keep up the work. Trump and Netanyahu were talking about building a tourist resort. We need our own alternative, a Gaza facility, because if Gaza dies, the soul of Europe dies with Gaza. Stop the genocide in Gaza. Where was Europe? You made announcements about Ukraine. You talked about what you will do in relation to Russia. What about the €200 billion in frozen Russian assets for reconstruction in Ukraine? Where was Europe in the fight against climate change this summer when part of Europe burned? Let us strengthen our commitment to climate neutrality. Mr. Weber, how are we going to have industry, companies, entrepreneurs on a territory which is being devastated by the results of climate change? We need a European affordable housing plan, paid internships for young people, a package of quality jobs and achievements for women. All these challenges require a budget to match. Ms von der Leyen, Mr. Weber, to conclude. Responsibility does not mean jettisoning our values and interests. Responsibility means not making deals with the far right, not seeking allies in the far right, with those who want to destroy Europe. Social democracy has always been and will always be at the heart of a European project, with responsibility and without, in any way, abdicating responsibilities to take decisions.
Peace over war, justice over genocide, climate action over denial, democracy over autocracy, equality over discrimination. That is the Europe our citizens deserve, and that is the Europe we will never give up. Thank you.
I now give the floor to the chair of the PFP group, Jordan Bardella.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, President von der Leyen, in the name of millions of French people, I ask you a simple question. What interests are you actually defending? What interests are you defending when you are imposing on France, which is the second largest economy in Europe, in the Mercosur agreement will increase unfair competition for farmers and will mean that we will have products on our plates which don't respect the drastic standards you impose on farmers. What you are proposing to cut tariffs on Chinese vehicles, and you're preventing our constructors to make combustion and hybrid vehicles by 2035. And when you want to define the European rules on the energy market, which deprive France of low prices in nuclear, and which destroys the competitiveness of our industry and companies and low-income households, what interests are you defending when you sign in our name a trade agreement with the US, which is against the interests of Europe? Our exports have 15% tariffs imposed on them, but the American exports will come to us without any tariffs at all. If that wasn't enough, you are calling on the member states to pay 750 billion euros on US energy exports, 600 billion euros in investments made here. And France has a high-class military industry. You are favouring American industries. Wines, cosmetics, luxury products and cosmetics are sacrificed. Around us, Canada, the UK, Australia, Japan or South Korea have better agreements than we have. In other words, even the smallest countries are better at defending their interests than you're doing when it comes to the US a few years ago. We were told that Europe would provide strength. We have 450 million consumers in our market. Nonetheless, you gave in on everything, almost everything. When it comes to the interests of German interests, you defended national interests. No CEO, no men of state would have signed such an agreement. You, madam, you did this on our behalf. I'm speaking today on the behalf of millions of French people and millions of Europeans who think that the European Union is not defending Europe. The world is a world of strength, and you're talking about you promise disappearance and decline. This history will judge you severely, as will our people.
Merci. Adesso do la parola al
Let me now give the floor to the co-president of the ECR group, Nicola Procaccini.
Grazie, Presidente.
Thank you, President von der Leyen. I will start from afar, but only geographically. The military parade of the Chinese leader, dressed like Mao Zedong, holding hands with Putin and Kim Jong-un, is no laughing matter. It reminds us that the world is a dangerous place, a place where regimes make no secret of their will to reshape the global order, even by force. Being aware of this reality does not mean that we should adopt a foolishly muscular attitude, but rather that we should strengthen our values, our economy, our defence and our alliances. We welcome the agreement reached with the American administration on tariffs, not because it's perfect, but because it's certainly better than a trade war between allies who need each other. We must have the courage as Europeans to make the right choices at the right time. The Green Deal was conceived and desired in a different geopolitical era. Today, it is too great an obstacle to European competitiveness. I would remind you that economic development is a prerequisite for having the resources to spend on military defence, welfare, and environmental protection. Maintaining the duties imposed by the European Union on its own industry, and even adding 5 new taxes of its own in the new multi-year budget, means going in the wrong direction. It's a tragic mistake. On the other hand, I think we're moving in the right direction on immigration, cooperating with migrants' country of origin and transit countries to stop illegal departures. Now we must quickly define safe third countries and make repatriation an effective practice, not an empty promise. But let me say one last thing. While we're discussing welcoming others here, in too many regions of the world, Christians are prevented from professing their faith. The post of EU Special Envoy for Freedom of Religion in the world has been vacant for a year now. I find this disheartening. President, please act quickly. For some, this may be of little importance, but for us Conservatives, it is very important indeed. Because if Europe doesn't defend the principles that shaped it, it will certainly not be able to defend its interests or its borders. Thank you.
Grazie. Maintenant, je donne la parole.
Thank you. I shall now give the floor to the chair of the Renew Europe group, Valérie Ayet.
Madame la Présidente, Madame la Présidente.
Madam President, colleagues. Madam President, we're losing the people of Europe. We have wealth, we have high standards, we stand up for freedom, but we're losing the Europeans. We're not taking them with us. We're weak when they want protection. Weak with Trump, weak with Putin, weak with China, weak on climate. Madam President, nothing is inevitable. In Renew, we refuse this concept of inevitability. It's about choices. We have to make the right choices and we have to move on to a more integrated, sovereign, federal Europe which protects. We now face an existential threat. The world is reorganizing itself before our very eyes. We have Russia at our borders. Her war on Ukraine is a moment of truth for Europe. In terms of security guarantees, we have met the challenge, but we need to do more. We need to give Ukraine what it needs to defend itself and create a Europe of defence. What happened this morning in Poland with Russian drones only confirms that Ukraine's security is our security. Let us protect Ukrainian airspace. It's not just through force that we will dissuade others from attacking us, but we need to stand up when faced with a hostile world. It is a cultural war, a war of culture. Our way of life, our values, our freedom and our independence are all under threat. And that culture war is not only coming from the East. We are the last bastion of democracy and freedom. We have to have a strong voice in the world, given these international trends. And we need concrete action on the democracy shield, because so much is at stake in the Czech Republic, Netherlands, Ireland, Portugal. Elections are going to be happening, and we face the risk of interference. When it comes to defending democracy, I think it is wonderful that you have talked about DSA and DMA and said that they're not going to be used as bargaining counters. We should stand firm on that, and I urge you to continue standing firm. Madam President, there's another crucial point for me in terms of defending our values. Nobody here in this chamber has forgotten about the atrocities of the 7th of October. Nobody should give the slightest space to Hamas. But nobody is blind either to what Benjamin Netanyahu is doing in human terms in Gaza. And young people are particularly alert to this. Young people in Europe now are facing a generational dilemma because they see what's happening in Gaza and they turn to us. And what we do will determine whether they can have faith in Europe and the European project. And what are we doing as of today? Member states are divided, therefore we have inaction. And that is a source of shame for Gazawis, for Israeli security, and for our young people's values. So yes, Madam President, the Commission should act, and we will defend you. We will defend the proposals which you put on the table this morning, and we would be willing to go further in order to end this catastrophe. Madam President, Europe's sovereignty is also about competitiveness, and we have a deep conviction in Renew. We believe that 2026 should be the Draghi report year, and for a year we've been waiting for the kind of response which you gave this morning. There is an economic emergency here now. Our entire prosperity is at stake. So less communication, more regulation. Yes, we need a capital markets union. Yes, we need the initiatives which you've talked about and the calendar for 2028. You say we should act more quickly. Yes, we should act more quickly, and we will support you in that once again. You mentioned simplification, and I think that's quite right, but we also need to look in specific terms at employment, growth, what the Draghi report says. The Draghi report also gives us hope for a Europe that can make its citizens dream with big industrial and technological projects. We should have things Europe-wide, Concorde, Airbus, and we need to look at space too, so that the next AI giant is European too. We have the brains, we have the technology. The only thing we're lacking is European investment in companies in Europe. We're lacking vision, and perhaps worse, we're lacking political capacity, wherewithal to do it. The economy is changing, the world is changing, so our governance rules should change too. Today, we can see we're dragging our feet, we're inefficient. We have institutions that are not up to the task of completing the projects which we've set ourselves. We need an institutional big bang in order to achieve this. And this is not to criticise, but to try to better achieve a delivery of what Europeans want. We need a big convention, urgently. Sanctions, taxation issues, national lists, more power to the European Parliament, more power for you, Madam President, more power for the President of the European Commission, direct universal suffrage elections by European citizens. All of this is doable. All of this can be done. We just need the political will to do it. One final comment, Madam President. You said the right thing today, Madam. Now we need to follow through with action. Because we're in the last chance saloon for a European alliance. A more integrated federal Europe with strong leadership. Stability and understanding amongst pro-European forces in this chamber is absolutely vital. I've had the opportunity to say this to you before, and I say this again today. We need you in my group for weeks and months. I've been trying to hold up your majority, trying to keep it together, trying to make sure it can work. We've been busting a gut to do that. Because people are watching. People are watching this. People are watching this at home, and they're seeing a pathetic spectacle. So we need to get down to action. That is the sine qua non condition for your agenda, as well presented today, to actually take a tangible form.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the co-president of the Green Group, Bas Eickhout.
Thank you, Madam President, and also thank you, Commissioner President. Your call for unity has not really landed in your own group leader, I have to say, but we will work on that. We will work on that. And maybe that is also true because the summer was very painful. Let's be honest. The EU has to back Trump to be at the peace table and is forced to swallow US tariffs. Putin's drones are flying over Poland and children are bombed and starved in Gaza, and we do nothing. Europe has entered a world of power, yet we are still playing chess in a boxing match. Business as usual is a recipe for another 3 years of humiliation. Europe has to stop thinking as a market and start acting as a power. And I have to say, today in your speech, you really changed in your tone. You stepped up. You came up with proposals. A bit the question is, of course, why now? And what will follow? What will be now very important, all the elements that you put on the table here needs to be followed up by action and implementation, and we will work with you to deliver on that. But there are also still inconsistencies that we have to address. Because if we are going to step up as a leader and step up in the ring to work on our own independence on security, economy and digital services, we need to be consistent. On security, you did a lot of proposals for the security of us and Ukraine, and rightfully so, and we will support. But security is more than weapons alone. This is about moral leadership. And here we have to talk about Gaza. Will we only start acting on Gaza when there is no Gaza left? When all the buildings are razed to the ground and all peoples have fled or are being killed? We need action, we need sanctions. And we do welcome the proposals that you made. But we need more. We need to suspend the association agreement immediately. We need an arms embargo. We need to stop imports from illegal settlements. Our credibility is at stake. You gave signs to very well understand that, so now we also have to turn to the Council. When is the Council finally going to understand that our credibility is at stake and is undermining our position in the world? Security also means acting on climate change. And you mentioned the forest fires and you showed the forest fighters. And here really towards the EPP, that you think you can slow down on climate action shows how disconnected you are from reality. We need a thriving economy that stays within our planetary boundaries, and that's what we need to work on. If we go to economic independence, we have to talk about energy. You said we need to be energy independent. But at the same time, you sign a Trump deal that delivers and promises a $750 billion investment in American energy. American energy that is dirtier than we have seen before. And that to replace the Russian LNG gas, that is only 10 billion per year for now. These numbers don't add up. This is really a crazy part of the deal with the United States, and it has to change. Because we should invest this money in European renewables, in European industry, because renewables are the worst enemy of fossil autocrats and are crucial for our competitiveness. And that brings me to competitiveness. Competitiveness is being framed too much as deregulation. And to the EPP, do you really want to fight America on their turf of deregulation? We will never win from the United States on deregulation. That's not the fight we should do. We should fight on our own investments, investing in our workforce, our education, our infrastructure, our green innovation. That's what green investments have to mean. And for that, we also still need to change the Stability and Growth Pact to create that room for investments. You took your initiatives, you mentioned the initiatives on how the Commission can work on demand, on circular economy, on clean tech. But I think it's very important to stress, and you did it, the problem for Europe isn't the Green Deal. The problem is that Europe isn't delivering enough on the Green Deal. On digital dependence, and I will conclude, Madam Chair, on digital dependence, you are also inconsistent. Because on the one hand, you say, we will keep to DSA and DMA, but what about the AI Act? You are saying that we want to invest in our own digital sovereignty, but what will this omnibus then do? We will make sure that your omnibus will not undermine our own digital sovereignty, and for that, by the way, we still need a digital services tax proposal. To conclude, we need to step our security, economic and digital policies. We don't need deregulation. We need a confident European leadership and ambitious plans. And Mr. Weber, for that, the shouting showed very clearly, you cannot work with them. So if you want unity, work with the center. For me, Europe has always stood for freedom. We need security and independence to defend just that. Not the freedom for shareholders to maximize the profits. Not the freedom for companies to use cancer-causing chemicals. Not the freedom to disregard human rights. The freedom to be yourself, express your ideas, freedom from poverty, war and dictatorship, freedom for our children to live on a healthy planet. That's where I want to see this Commission fighting for, starting today.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to the co-president of the Left Group, Martin Schiedewan. Martin, go ahead.
Vielen Dank, Frau Präsidentin.
Thank you very much, President. Well, you're trying to do politics with a coalition that's made up of Conservatives, Social Democrats, the Green and the Liberals. Well, you end up with no opposition. But my group will continue to be in opposition because the trade deal that you concluded with the United States is an attack on our industrial base and will destroy thousands of jobs. And praising that deal really requires a high level of cognitive dissonance. While Donald Trump is rapidly turning the USA into an authoritarian state, you've made European politics subservient to US economic and military interests. You're sacrificing energy sovereignty, our digital markets, security and climate protection on the Atlantic of the empty phrase transatlantic partnership. This deal is a total capitulation. You're concluding one free trade deal after another, Mercosur, Mexico, India soon, and thereby you circumvent national parliaments, the basis of our democracy. But trying to fight overcapacity with more free trade is about as illogical as throwing firelighters on the flames of the European economic crisis. Every month, 10,000 jobs are lost in Europe in the steel sector. 1 in 3 Europeans lives in precarious conditions and has to count every single cent because of the increased costs of rents, food and energy. Working poverty, poverty in old age, child poverty. You can't fight these things using free trade. Rather, you need courageous investments in industry, infrastructure and public services. However, the only investments that you've come up with are 800 billion euros for armaments and militarisation. At the same time, your Commission is recommending measures to make brutal cuts in pensions, health and welfare payments. Your policies are splitting our society. Today, we've crossed a red line. For feel too long, you've been silent on the humanitarian disaster and the war crimes committed by the Israeli army in Gaza. Your words are not enough. The association agreement with Israel must be suspended, weapons deliveries discontinued, and the far-right ministers of the Netanyahu government must be sanctioned. For 3.5 years, the EU has played no diplomatic role in trying to forge peace in Europe. Today, you've talked a lot about security guarantees for Ukraine and sanctions on Russia, but you can't hide the irrelevance of Europe's security and foreign policy. Your record is one of social and economic failure, foreign policy double standards, and subjection to autocrats. 60% of Europeans want you to resign. Do them a favour. Thank you.
I give the floor now to the President of the ESN Group, René Aust.
Europe was once a dream, a continent where families could build their own homes through hard work, a continent that was the engine of global progress, a Europe where women could live safely, the poor were protected by good social legislation, and young people had the opportunity to make something out of their lives by working. But this dream has been destroyed by politicians like Angela Merkel and Ursula von der Leyen. While the global economy is growing and new markets are emerging, Europe is falling behind. We know why. To know that, you just have to listen to Ursula von der Leyen's speech. Not once did she mention the core of the market economy, European entrepreneurial freedom, centrally planned billion programs, bureaucracy from the top down. But prosperity comes from work, innovation, entrepreneurial courage, not from 5-year plans from Ursula von der Leyen. In migration policy too, pipe dreams have done Europe serious harm. Enrichment was promised. The reality, knife attacks, terrorism, rapes, drug gangs from Italy to Germany, Spain and Rotherham and Malmö. And in Brussels, where the EU talks about diversity, the Belgian government is seriously considering deploying the army in the capital in order to protect the city from violence and migrant gangs. Miss von der Leyen still talks in fine-sounding marketing phrases. She talks about unity in our continent. But we can only have that if we, in Romania, elections are cancelled. Candidates are excluded from elections in France and democracy. You need to return to democracy and the freedom of opinion. We say yes to industry jobs, even if they emit CO2. No to chat control and censorship. Yes to migration, re-migration throughout Europe. and no to Ursula von der Leyen.
Now for the Council, the Minister for European Affairs, Marie Bjerre.
President von der Leyen, I would like to thank the President of the Commission for her address and her analysis of the challenges and opportunities facing us. Europe needs a strong leadership in challenging times. Madam President, you provide such strong leadership. On a personal note, I have to say I am proud that Europe has such a strong leader like you. We need a Europe with a strong vision. You said it very clearly and very strong. A new Europe must emerge. This is Europe's independence moment. Europe should take control over its own security, technology, and energy, and stand up for its values. Madam President, I note that several of the issues you mentioned today are completely in line with the Danish presidency's priorities: a secure Europe and a competitive and green Europe. Let me highlight a few. Our firm solidarity with Ukraine and its people at a crucial time, and the need to support more. Our Rearm Europe investment plan to strengthen Europe's defense industry and production so that we can defend ourselves by 2030 at the latest. The need for European Union to continue protecting the rule-based international order, especially in the light of the ongoing conflicts. The need to find European solutions to fight irregular migrants, including effective returns. The need to continue our simplification and burden reduction efforts to make the EU more competitive, while staying true to our green goals. And as a basis for all this, a multi-annual financial framework ready to deliver on future challenges. I will not go into further details here, but let me promise you that the Council is ready to continue the good work with Parliament and the Commission on the priorities. The Council discussed the Commission's letter of intent already on our meeting on the 16th of September. This discussion among ministers aims to give input to the upcoming Commission work programme for 2026. We also look forward to working with the Parliament and the Commission on the joint declaration on the EU's legislative priorities for 2026. And we will keep in mind the need to deliver results for Europe, to make Europe stronger, more secure, more competitive. We share your vision, Madam President, to give Europe the freedom and power to choose our own destiny. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to Dolores Montserrat. 1.5 minutes.
Gracias, Presidenta.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, President, for the proposals. We now need to move on to action now, because our main ally is increasing tariffs. China is moving forward increasingly as the geopolitical centre, looking at Ukraine, a fight for freedom and against tyranny. We need a fair, lasting peace. If Ukraine falls, that will be the beginning of the fall of Europe. Within our own borders, we face gigantic challenges. Competitiveness versus irrelevance, sovereignty versus dependence, rural depopulation or supporting farmers, and we have threats inside too, becoming too accustomed to what is actually unacceptable. Look at Slovakia, Slovenia, Hungary or Spain, governments infringing upon freedom and rule of law, the judiciary attacking the press. We should not look the other way. Spain's Supreme Court ruled yesterday that the public prosecutor should be investigated for revealing secrets to a political rival and acting in the interests of the government of the day. We need to look at what Sanchez has been involved in. We need to ensure not only that we have the values, but the way in which we defend our values. Rule of law is not just a statement of principle. It is something which requires practical protection in the same way as our borders require protection. If our fundamental principles are undermined, then Europe will have been evaded.
Mohammed Shahim, 1 minute. 1 minute.
Dank u, voorzitter. Europa heeft het moeilijk. We hebben het moeilijk.
President, Europe is facing difficult times. We're facing difficulties in the geopolitical arena, difficulties in trade, difficulties with energy prices for industry, difficulties in keeping up with new technologies. Now, a few years ago, we had great prospects with the Green Deal. It was our man on the moon moment. But it seems as if we've lost our inspiration. And stagnation means decline. Let's look at the car industry, for example. We no longer have ambition. And we no longer intend to compete with China. Imagine if we really helped that sector move forward and sought cross links with other sectors that are struggling. For example, ensuring that European cars were made from green steel. And that would be great. And imagine if we made those cars affordable and accessible to teachers and nurses via social leasing. But we need to be creative, otherwise a slow, silent death awaits.
Well, unfortunately, there are clouds of big marketing phrase lingering over Europe. And at the same time, we can expect frost of bureaucratic paper forms, a wind of departures of entrepreneurs is coming. The insecurity of citizens is rising. But citizens don't care about the forecast of words. They feel a real draft in their wallets. A third of them expect their standards of living to get worse in 5 years. That's not just a number, that is a loss of trust. Europeans are not ATMs. They are people who work, pay their bills and want security. But your policies have made electricity more expensive, you added more paperwork, and you subsidize NGOs that lobby for further bans. You say you protect Europe, but in practice you are turning it into an expensive workshop from which companies leave and jobs disappear. Security is not populism. Security is a basic duty toward people to ensure they don't have to fear for their jobs, their bills, their future. And this very duty you are failing to fulfill, Madam President. Your role is not to build a state and be ahead of this state. Your role is to be the head of a college that serves the citizens of the European Union.
2.5 minutes.
Dziękuję, pani przewodnicząca. Pani przewodnicząca.
Thank you very much, President. What is the state of the EU? You seem to be thinking you can cover reality with empty words. Let's compare some data. When you took your post and today, we had peace on our borders. Today, not only do we have a war, we have Russian drones falling all over Poland. Now, you wanted cheap energy and you believed so deeply in a reset with Russia. Now, prices of energy have doubled over your term of office. Standard of living is falling and European debt is growing. What about prices of new cars? They have grown by 30%. Our industry is but a shadow of its former glory. Now, you have very ambitious climate objectives. In Europe, we see more violence, especially sexual violence. In a report from the Parliament, you have admitted that gang violence is growing in Europe due to competition between criminal gangs. In the past, we were almost equal in terms of GDP with the US, and now it's only 60%. How can you be proud of anything?
cordon sanitaire, such terms have been developed here. And now in Europe, if a wrong candidate wins an election, such election is declared null and void. You curtail freedom of speech, freedom of the internet, and instead of going into economic integration, you choose to go for political integration, more centralization. So all of these things that have led us to this dire place and position that we are in. But that is not the most serious problem. What is most serious is that Europe has lost its sense of purpose. This city, 2,000 years of history. So what do we see here? The Holy Mary cathedrals. This is the symbol of synthesis between mind and faith. We need this back. Goethe used to write about this, these forms, this music that leads us to God. I'm talking about God. You are a generation of decadence. Why are you self-confident, so pleased with yourselves? You are pushing us towards the abyss, which is why you have to leave.
And Gerbrandi, 1.5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam President. Dear commissioners, dear colleagues, Europe is not condemned to weakness. Far from it. Time and again, Europe has proven to be our best chance. When our people were trapped by a deadly pandemic, it was Europe that produced the vaccines that saved millions. When Russia invaded Ukraine, it was Europe that stood tall, united under the Ukrainian flag. And when the climate crisis threatened our children's future, it was Europe again that set the most ambitious green agenda in the world. And we can rise to these challenges too. We have the engineers, the scientists, the soldiers, the farmers, the entrepreneurs. We have the ideas, the values, the creativity. What we lack is not capacity. What we need is confidence to act together. Imagine what this union can be. A continent that runs on its own clean energy and builds technology others can only dream of. A Europe that speaks with one voice and fights with one army. It can be done. If only our member states could be less afraid to choose compromise over debilitating consensus, to choose unity over their own individual agendas. Yes, colleagues, we have a very crucial choice ahead of us. And let's choose to unite. Let's follow President von der Leyen's pitch for unity, as she called it. And to Mr. Weber and Mrs. Garcia Perez, unity is not looking for differences. Our European citizens need a strong pro-European coalition. Let's take our responsibility and show that we can make Europe together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Marie Toussaint, 1 minute.
Madame
President, Europe is not doing well, and I'm afraid you bear some responsibility for that. You've been full of promises to the European Parliament, but it sounds a bit hollow. You see liberalism, neoliberalism as the only way, but this has led us to neo-imperialism from Russia, China, and now the US. You signed an agreement with Donald Trump, the $750 billion that you shamefully promised him for his climate-killing energy. This man wants Europe as his vassal. So what is your Europe for? Recording violence which occurs elsewhere in the world, while we have social, environmental crises. Europe's voice is stifled worldwide. It is late, but the time has come. Turn your back on austerity, which has led to precarity. Let us put climate and social justice as our compass, defend international law, and defend Benedetta Scuderi and other parliamentarians who are fighting in Gaza and Ukraine and elsewhere for humanitarian reasons.
Potenga.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, President of the Commission. Thank you. Well, you're running scared. You're running scared. You feel the demonstrations in the street, popular anger, because after years of non-social policies, years of supporting genocide in Palestine, years of submission to the United States, well, suddenly a speech to try and respond to all of that. You're trying to save your skin, clearly. I mean, it's great that you're here after an hour and a half, because last time you left after half an hour. But you're responding to popular pressure here, social mobilisations that we're seeing today in France, Belgium and other European countries. And I'm pleased that you're listening. But I also see the contradiction, because billions of euros, 800 billion for arms company shareholders. I mean, you're putting that money there, but it's money that won't go into pensions, into housing, to fight poverty. So on the one hand, you're smiling at people, but on the other hand, you're stabbing them in the back. And we're not going to let that happen. We'll continue our mobilisation. Thank you.
1 minute, please.
Thank you very much, Mrs. President. Mrs. von der Leyen, the EU is in decline. A demographic crisis, a economic recession, unbridled migration, lack of innovation, diplomatic unsustainability. This is but a few of the problems that we have, but the Commission is creating new problems. The migration policy is detrimental to the member states. Our reaction to the pandemic, the experiments with the Green Deal, the fiasco when it comes to rearmament. Europe belongs to citizens. They need to be at the center of each and every strategy. Your policies are a threat to the European civilization. The freedom of expression is today being threatened. If everyone who thinks differently is dubbed as an extremist, but we're not extremists. We defend our states, our peoples, our families. You are the extremists because you have put Europe on the road to war and you do nothing for our prosperity.
Good morning to everybody. The coalition of the willing, as it's called, could be considered the discovery of the French president, who's more concerned about his over-debted country. He wants to distract from that. He wants to distract from problems is something we all want. Commissioner, your desires to do similar it's all very well, but we're looking at a Trojan horse here. Basically, people are going to be in debt. 5% of GDP is going to go to military spending. Schools going to be cut. Health services going to be cut. We're going to have Big Brother monitoring. We're not going to be fighting unemployment. We're not going to be investing in outdated infrastructure. We're not going to be fighting against shortage of housing and homelessness. Thank you.
1.5 minutes.
Szanowna Pani Prezydent.
President, Commissioner, members of the House. Tonight and this morning has seen an unprecedented event. We have had to defend a NATO country, an EU country. Drones were fired, and we have passed the test. We have solidarity. We've been able to react quickly, and I thank Dutch and Italian pilots, and I thank the Commission for their resolute and rapid reaction. But now we have to think about whether or not this was by chance. This wasn't just, was this really just a lost drone? Where's the real threat to be found, and who is that? Putin is testing whether we stand together. He's testing whether we're ready to defend our security. The citizens of all European countries expect that we will be effective in this task. And I call on you. It's high time now. Let's not look for enemies where there are none. It's Putin who's bombing schools and hospitals and stealing children. Ukraine needs our help, and we should help because it's defending our security. Are you going to keep saying on the right side of this house that it's not our war? This is also about the security of your citizens. You can't be calling yourselves patriots if you don't know what patriotism means. And to the left, I say this. Our security is our priority. And if we want to be effective in other areas, strong economy, money for other things, a competitive economy, then we have to stand together and ready to show solidarity to defend Europe.
Will you take it? Blue card. From Ms. Grappini. Ms. Grappini, go ahead. She's speaking Romanian, so perhaps you take the earpiece.
Dear colleagues, mulțumesc, doamna președintă.
Thank you very much, Madam President. You've said that the European Union has security as its number one priority. Madam President, you've set out the state of the Union beyond security. Do you think that Ms. von der Leyen's programme, in which she desires greater cooperation with the Parliament, does this give us safety, confidence and the transparency that our European citizens require, including our Romanian citizens? Let me give you an example. If Madam President would like greater cooperation, can we say that she is cooperating with the Parliament when she doesn't want to answer our questions, doesn't even come for the budget or parliamentary budgetary committee?
I would like to emphasize and say again, well, we have to be united and strong. If we'll be split, Putin will be successful. This is the only message I would like to say today after violation of airspace of our European country. We have been united. We are various, we are different, but in this common general goal, we have to be together. In other case, we can dissolve our common union. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Halicki. Yanis Maniatis, 1 minute.
President von der Leyen, allow me to begin by thanking the Greek rescue workers who are working every summer to protect us all. Fire services that need support both at national and European level. Madam President, political developments are pushing us to our limit. I want a stronger Europe in Gaza, in Ukraine, in Libya, Syria, in the Caucasus, on climate change, in strategic autonomy with the Rearm Europe, instead of using the growth of or instead of encouraging the growth of the European defence industry, why don't we protect our borders in the Eastern Mediterranean? For the new Union budget, I want a greater regional policy which strengthens our territorial cohesion with a specific budget line for every region in order to guarantee that none of us get left behind.
I give the floor next to Herman Tetsch. 1 minute.
President von der Leyen, for 6 years you have presented programmes and wasted billions. As a result, Europe is weaker, less safe, less effective, more vulnerable and far less free. You headed up 3 ministries in Germany, and here you have reached the apex of failure. You have shown arrogance inability, lack of transparency. You have threatened any disagreements, independent media would not receive commission funding, propaganda, subsidies for NGOs, all ideologically driven. We see the Green Deal, the Muslim invasion. We know that Ms. Merkel launched this. You have continued along that path. And now we see what is happening in Israel. You have defamed Israel, and we hope that Europeans will show courage and defend our civilization and our society, as Israel is doing so.
1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. President von der Leyen, it's great to see you here. Last year, you fled the chamber after half an hour, much like public trust in your leadership has fled. Now, 6 in 10 Europeans want you to resign. And who can blame them? You buried Europe under a mountain of regulations and danced to the tune of the Green Left choir while industry crumbled and taxpayers bled. You came in promising unity and delivered debt and division. You claimed to defend democracy, but sidelined it with centralization. You spoke of competitiveness while pushing businesses out of Europe. And don't take my word for it, Frau von der Leyen. Ask your own party members revolting against your unrealistic 2040 climate target. They know it would destroy our industry. Colleagues, you saw a president of the European Commission taking a victory lap on a track she helped burn down. Europe deserves better. It's time to resign.
I give the floor now to João Cotrim de Figueiredo. 1.5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam President. Frau von der Leyen, allow me to address you directly to remind you of the great wisdom of Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility. You have great power, Frau von der Leyen. You lead the executive unit of our union. And I had a chance to talk to you and also with Council President Costa before your mandate began. Do you remember? So I'll ask you again today what I asked you at the time. Show leadership. That means decide exactly what needs to be done and then actually doing it, forcing it through. Show courage by treating what is important better than what it is urgent and not trying to please everybody. As you've seen, it's not going to be possible. And show speed, please. Show speed, because we know we can move faster and we know we are running out of time. When we didn't need Draghi to tell us this, that we're running out of time, and also that we run an existential risk. So I say again, you have great power, you have the great responsibility to reform the EU before it is too late, and there are 4 years left in your mandate. Use them to show leadership, to show courage, to show speed. Renew Europe, we'll be here to help you, but the primary responsibility is yours. For Europe's sake, I wish you success and good luck.
Thank you. Thank you also for showing speed in your speech. Anna Cavazzini, 1 minute.
Ja, Frau Präsidentin, Sie sind angetreten mit einem
President, you took office promising that Europe must be less dependent. You've repeated that time and again today. It was a good speech, but let us look at facts, implementation, the majorities. We're not seeing climate protection. Your own group here in this House is undermining and attacking key legislation on combustion engines, for example. We are not seeing self-assured dealings with the US. What the EU is doing is bowing to Trump. If you really want to hold the line, then please do not start reopening legislation that has just been adopted. Show a backbone. If you want true digital sovereignty, then don't kowtow to Trump. Implement a digital tax for once and for all. We need European SME legislation. Don't duck legislation because it doesn't go down well with a few US tech firms. Be strong and don't bow to the chauvinists.
For you, will you take it? Mr. Ronza. Your colleague. From the East, from Poland.
I will speak in Polish. Please take headphones. Okay. My speech will be in Polish language. Pochodzi pani z...
You're from the Greens, and you probably know about the environmental protection details. Now, I wanted to ask you, we've heard that Brazil use 4,000 pesticides to produce food products. Knowing that, do you support the EU-Mercosur agreement? Do you like the fact that firms producing in Europe can't sell pesticides in Europe and then they sell them to Brazil? Do you support the agreement? Do you support foodstuffs produced with all these chemicals?
Vielen herzlichen Dank für die Frage.
Thank you for your question. It is extremely important that we cooperate with Latin American countries, particularly in the Trump era. But it is true that a bad deal for our farmers, a deal that would further destroy the Amazon region, is not a good trade deal, and the Greens will not support it.
Now to Gaetano Pedulla. 1 minute.
Good morning. President, I have a suggestion. We should change the title of this debate, because Ursula von der Leyen has turned it into the comatose State of the Union. President of the Commission, it's a real shame. There's a long list. The farmers are being sacrificed on the altar of trade deals with Mercosur. It's a scourge on small and medium-sized enterprises that are exporting their work to the world. The trade deal with Trump is a humiliation for Europe. You've defended it here, but it's a humiliation. Our goods will be more expensive in the US, while the US will not pay taxes in Europe. What a disaster. You are a threat to the security and safety of Europe. With the REARM EU programme, we are getting into the Ukrainian war, whereas we just need peace. The policies of this Commission are a death sentence for Palestinian children. What do you expect? Do you think you're going to stop arms sales to Israel? Go home.
And Ulrich, 1 minute, please.
Pani Leyenová, za to,
Frau von der Leyen, for the way you're destroying Europe, you should have been in court for a long time and not call for 2 billion budget here in the European Parliament and introduce even more destructive Green Deal measures. Europe is burning and you're hallucinating about unrealistic visions, but it's for your war and sanction politics that people are suffering and paying record prices for energies. Because of your Green Deal, European companies are deserting Europe. Because of your immigration policy, every week sees a shooting in Europe, and in Brussels they have to deploy the army against immigrants. You have destroyed Europe, and we are just a small step from a total collapse, and despite of that you are not admitting to a mistake, and you just come here to ask for even stronger application of policies that have destroyed Europe, that have not worked so far. You are asking for a stricter punishment of all opponents and critics. Ms. von der Leyen, do one good service for Europe, resign. You are not the chair of Europe. Europe belongs to people, not to you.
Excuse me, Mr. Ulrich, you have a blue card from Mr. Gasyuk. Will you take it? Mr. Gasyuk? Ms. Gasyuk? Okay. Yes, Camilla, go ahead. Ms. Gasyuk.
Use your headphones.
Today, we are faced with a threat, and we can't divide Europe. We can't submit to Russian disinformation. We mustn't relativize the fact that Russia is the deadly threat faced by Europe, and we need to sanction Russia. Today, the remains of a Russian drone fell on Polish land 30 kilometers from my own home. The war is close by. Poland is defending Europe, shooting down Russian drones. That is where we are at on the eastern border. So we have to show that we are powerful and united, because Russia only understands the language of strength.
30 seconds.
Thank you very much. I didn't understand. The interpreting was not working, but what I got from my understanding of Polish, I am convinced that the European Union should not transform itself into a military union. A European Union should be a peaceful economic project of economic cooperation, fair cooperation between nations, and should not be buying arms, should not transfer money from agriculture and regions to purchase of drones or tanks. It should not turn into a military union. It should remain a peaceful and economic project. That's all we want.
Now to Elena Yoncheva, 1 minute.
Уважаема госпожо фон дер Лайен. Madam von der Leyen, the success of the European Union depends on the strength and dignity of each member state. You were in Bulgaria on the 31st of August when the world media agencies gave false information about your plane circling around Plovdiv for an hour and a half, which was not true. And this is the type of information that harms the reputation of Bulgaria, because now Bulgaria is associated with this so-called news. In the current context, each piece of false information may lead to dangerous consequences. Bulgaria has very well-developed air traffic. So please, confirm that.
Can you really confirm that there were no gaps in our security during your flight? Because Bulgarian airspace is part of European security and airspace.
And 1.5 minutes.
Madam President, President von der Leyen, dear colleagues, we are surrounded by autocrats. Autocrats who want to weaken us, who cooperate, look at their picture in Beijing, who attack our neighbors, our values, our cyberspace and our democracies. Disinformation, cyber attacks, provocations and electoral interference are their weapons. And they are looking for servants within the 27 member states of the Union. They challenge us from outside and they challenge us from inside. And looking away will not protect us. Nobody else will protect us unless we protect ourselves. And it's clear that to live in peace, we need to be strong. This is why setting security and defense on the one side and competitiveness on the other side as our top priorities for the next years is the right decision. And these two, security and competitiveness, are interlinked. We will only be able to invest more in our security if our economies are strong, and the private sector will only invest more in our economies if they feel safe. And to be protected, we need even more. Food security is of essence. There can be no national security without food security. And we need strong and modern infrastructures, energy infrastructure, digital infrastructure, which is innovative, modern, and transport infrastructure, large cross-border projects which protect our single market, and smaller infrastructure projects which are deeply rooted at local and regional level. These shall be the priorities of the Union for the next years, and these should also be reflected in the way in which we spend. This is what the majority of colleagues in this House stand for, and this is why we believe that as we are embarking now on the work for the budget of the Union for the next 7 years, we should defend this together in the work that we're going to do: security, competitiveness, food security, and good infrastructure, strongly anchored at local level. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I give the floor now. Hold on, Mr. Mureșan. There is a blue card from Mr. Lazarus. Will you take it?
Mulțumesc, doamna președintă. Profit de ocazie că a fost vorba despre...
Thank you. We're talking about autocrats. A question for Mr. Mureșan. Can he see a parallel between autocrats in the East and the methods used by Mrs. von der Leyen, guiding Europe via the European Commission? We have understood that Mrs. Metsola had filed a complaint under Article 122 against the Commission about the safe package, thereby circumventing Parliament. What is the current state of play there? So can you see similarities here? Is that process underway? Will there be a vote on the safe package in Parliament?
Mr. Lazarus, for mixing up everything with everything in trying to gain some of our attention, but not much of what he said is true. The European Union is a very democratic entity. This very Parliament that we're all together in is directly elected by the citizens of Europe. We have elected together the European Commission, and the European Commission is making decisions checked, controlled by the European Parliament. We have clear procedures here at European level. This is all very democratic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Muresan. I give the floor now to Alex Ajusaliba. 1 minute, please.
When we discuss the state of our union, we cannot ignore the state of the world. Our voters ask you to put a stop to the killing in Gaza, to stop and to halt the trade with Israel. We cannot have business as usual with a country that commits genocide. It goes against our treaties. The European citizens are also worried about what comes from a derailed president in the White House. And today we had complete silence. We cannot be blackmailed into watering down our digital laws over transatlantic trade tensions. Following the statements made by the US regarding the DSA, you should activate the anti-coercion mechanism as soon as possible. Europe has to become needs to become stronger and invest in its public digital infrastructure. We are 80% dependent on foreign technology. Our priority should be to reduce this number by the end of the digital decade in 2030. We need the right to disconnect. We also need better accommodation, state accommodation as soon as possible.
Grazie. Thank you very much. President von der Leyen, we had 75 minutes of agony, lots of theory mixed in with hypocrisy, and now we're being told how to solve the problems that she caused. There's so many contradictions. You've talked about electric vehicles and respecting the dashboard, but when her chancellor from the same party, Merz, is asking for more flexible timeframes, she's talking about a programme for resilience, but at the same time she's cutting funds for agriculture. The Mercosur deal is about weapons. She is turning to a European majority. It's always easy to turn on your friends when you're weak, but this weakness is reflecting the divisions of the fragile and patchwork majority that's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very difficult for them to support her.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Doamna von der Leyen, vă rog, vă cer acum.
Madam von der Leyen, I call on you to resign. I demand it here and now. We have 2 motions of no confidence, but also because you are no longer credible as a president. Surveys show that 60% of Europeans demand that you resign because of the disastrous trade agreement with the US, and 91% of EU citizens want transparency in the spending of public funds, something that you have systematically refused. The Parliament has taken the Council to the Court of Justice because of the rearm EU, because of the way that's been set up. This lie about your flight in Bulgaria shows the failure of your term of office. The Trump government, India, China and the Mercosur states are refusing diplomatic contacts with you. Your leading the Commission is eroding democracy, weakening member states. Be aware of one thing, you need to go.
And will you take it? From Ms. Sosowaka, your colleague.
Vă mulțumesc. Am apăsat blue card și la...
Well, I've been given the floor and I would like to speak to the colleagues in the EPP Mr. Piperea, I think there's a different question you should ask for Mrs. van der Leyen, namely, why hasn't she mentioned that Qatar was attacked by Israel yesterday and 15 civilians were killed in that attack? Mrs. van der Leyen was talking about the Talmud and saying that the religion of Israel was linked to the...
You speak. Mr. Pereira, would you like to answer?
Anything to answer is not a question for me, I'm sorry.
I give the floor next to Martins Stakis. 1 minute, please.
Dear colleagues, I too dislike the one-side trade deal with the United States. I too dislike watching Europe quietly accept a shifting world order or the next sudden decision from the US president. So we can shout in the sky, tear our ears out, or hold the endless non-confidence votes. But nothing will change if you don't understand one simple truth. Any commission will have its hands tied if Europe depends on others for security. So our values are the strongest in the world, but our muscles are weak. So relying on America's shield comes at a price for Europe. Only Europe able to defend itself will be treated as equal by Washington or by Beijing. So defense must come first, the better trade deals and influence will follow.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stakis, also for sticking to time. Per Clausen, 1 minute.
Kære kommissionsformand, du har nogle...
Commission President, you have excellent speech writers, but I would have liked to hear more concrete substance rather than fine words. The State of the Union, that is what we're here to talk about this morning, and there is much that could be changed, much that needs to be done. Fine words are not enough. Clichés will not solve the climate crisis or deal with the coal-black policies that you and the right wing are fighting for. What about the millions of Europeans facing poverty who cannot afford enough food or medicine for their children? Similarly, it is difficult to imagine that the bullies who are currently plaguing the world, Putin, Trump, Netanyahu, are being deterred by your words. We are facing massive challenges. Why do you continue to turn a blind eye to these challenges?
Gewinneinbruch bei Mercedes und Porsche.
Mercedes, Porsche are cutting thousands of jobs. ThyssenKrupp is stopping steel production. 6 years ago, you called for the Green Deal. Europe has to be climate neutral. Combustion engines should be banned, you said, and you confirmed that today. The result can be seen already. German industry is no longer competitive. 250,000 jobs have gone. In your second term of office, you've once again made big plans. The victory over Russia. Billions of euro have gone to Kiev. A corrupt system. In Germany, we have no money left. People can't pay for their shopping in the supermarkets. Families can't afford to buy their own house. Pensioners have to collect bottles for the deposit money. But you want to give 2,000 billion in your next budget. Hundreds of billions in debt for future crises, and there will be future crises because your commission is creating the crisis that you then tell us you're going to solve. Donald Trump has shown us how you have to deal with great megalomaniacs like von der Leyen. You kick them out, and that's what we should do too.
Sorry, 1.5 minutes.
Herr Sell, zum Glück hat man bei
Fortunately, by each and every word, we could sense that you were bowing to Russia and Putin. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am very grateful to the Commission President. Over the last year, here in the European Union, we have seen a huge shift in European policy. We now are hearing clear words. You have hit the nail on the head, Mrs. von der Leyen. We are in a fight to ensure sovereignty, independence, freedom, democracy, peace. We can see this translated through the policies of the European Commission. We have seen proposals that do not undermine competitiveness and defence, quite the opposite. When it comes to defence, we're finally seeing progress. When it comes to competitiveness, finally seeing progress. We have ambitious omnibus to cut down on red tape. We need to add one further point. We need to tackle social issues. We want to see greater prosperity, social welfare payments, child welfare payments. How do we finance defence investment? We need competitiveness to do that. And so I would urge all in this House to work together. We need to ensure we maintain our standard, but we really do need to cut down on the red tape and the expense and the burden so that we can give people greater competitiveness, prosperity and freedom. Thank you.
1 minute.
Fru talman och president von der Leyen.
Madam President, Madam von der Leyen, in your last mandate, you had a commission that did a great number of things, and you made sure that Europe made progress in terms of security, equal opportunities and climate. Now we have the far right who want to reduce that ambition. The Social Democrats want to continue to work on these subjects. We agree that you need to fight the positions of the far right, including on the issue of equality. We want to see PFAS banned and protect women's rights. This needs to be worked on. We need to guarantee the right to abortion as well as equal opportunities. It's not in the speech, but I want my grandchildren to be able to live in a world with equal opportunities.
Thank you very much, members of the House. If I could ask you just to think for a moment about what's gone on here. The European Union is in a very difficult situation, perhaps the worst since the Second World War. War is at our gates, and sanctions packages and money and weapons are feeding into that war. We're destroying hundreds of thousands of jobs at the same time with the Green Deal, stealing families' futures. We're stealing people's freedoms with checks and what have you. But at the same time, we have open borders and we're destroying the culture of the continent with people flowing in. We're Africanizing Europe. And then, Commissioner, President, you come here and say that we have to be patriotic and that you're going to guarantee sovereignty. Please write down. It's not those who are fighting for freedom and that are the enemies of Europe, those who want the rights of their parliaments in the member states to be respected. It's your lot who are the enemies, those who are repressing people's freedoms.
From Mr. Grazoulis, will you take it? Mr. Grazoulis, your colleague. Oh. 1 minute.
Madam von der Leyen, the EU is today facing an existential threat. While you are attached to your old software, such as the Green Deal, you are preparing to sign a Mercosur deal going around the vote of the states. You want to accept an unfair deal with the US, while that was an opportunity to show that you were at the up to the historical moment. We are currently in an era of authoritarianism. Free trade is behind us. We can no longer count on Washington to guarantee our security. The UN and other institutions are impotent faced with the conflicts all around us. International law has been replaced by a power struggle. Nigeria has twice as high a birth rate as our countries, And you only spend 1 minute on the issue of immigration. This speech was the proof that you do not realise what the situation faces us. So once again, we would like to appeal to you to break with the past. You have a blue card. Would you like to accept it? A Polish colleague.
Szanowna Pani Przewodnicząca.
President, thank you very much to the President of the Commission for showing solidarity with Poland. I know that there are a lot of issues today.
Okay, go ahead. Start again. Thank you.
Szanowna Pani
President of the Commission, the Polish delegation would like to thank the President of the Commission for the expressions of solidarity because Polish airspace has been violated by Russian drones today. This was targeted. It was not an accident. We call for solidarity, but we'd also like to say very clearly that the threat we're facing today comes from the East and not the West. Europe stands for values, it stands for security. It's also about European funds and the safe funds. Yesterday, we decided at 44 billion euro for Poland. That too will defend Poland and defend Poland's borders.
The interpretation didn't work, however, your point was made. I give the floor now to Irene Montero. 1 minute.
Gracias, Presidenta.
Thank you, President. President, you said that Europe fights for freedom. Are you willing to go to war to defend Europe's freedom, buying weapons? Imagine what Israel is doing to Palestinian children dying of hunger. You are subjugating Europe to the two greatest threats in the world, the US, for example, and you did a deal with the US president in a private golf course. You are supporting a terrorist action by Israel. You are not supporting sovereignty. You are bowing to Donald Trump. And what about the vessels bringing medicine and food to Gaza? They are turned back. You said that this fleet of vessels was escalating the conflict. This is civil humanitarian aid. Are you going to support civil and humanitarian aid or a terrorist state in Israel? Are you collaborating with genocide? You should stand for humanitarian international law.
I give the floor now to Mr. Tobé, 1.5 minutes. No, Mr. Tobé.
Tack, fru talman, fru ordförande.
Thank you very much, Madam President, President of the Commission, colleagues. We moderates want a free and safe Europe. That was our election manifesto, and it's more important than ever before. Russia's war in Ukraine and an unpredictable Trump, trade conflicts, the situation in the Middle East, China, are all problems that we have now. There's criminality, illegal immigration, and general global insecurity. With all that, it's really important that we shoulder our responsibility, that we act for security, for competitiveness, for jobs, for prosperity. We need a strong Europe that holds together, that sticks together. Those who would divide us, who are they working for? We must shoulder our responsibility. We all bear that responsibility together. We Swedish moderates and in the EPP are ready to do that. We want to tackle the criminal gangs. We want to cut back on EU red tape. We want control over migration. We have to act on this. We have to reinforce our own defence. We have to defend and support Ukraine. We in the EPP, we moderates, will make sure that we have a strong, safe, free Europe today and in the future.
Thomas, you have a blue card. Do you want to take it? Mr. Grazoulis, let's hope it works. If it doesn't, we won't take it. Go ahead, Mr. Grazoulis. Let's check. Press the button. Okay.
Dear rapporteur, dear colleague, you together with von der Leyen have been governing the European Parliament and Europe. Dear Speaker, you, your party, together with Madam von der Leyen, have been governing for 2 terms the European Parliament and the European Commission. You have created in 10 years these problems. You are not managing migration. You are not following Christian values. No country in the world respects you, neither China, nor United States, nor India.
Well, colleague, thank you for your question. I disagree. What we see now is a Europe that is taking responsibility. Of course, we don't like tariffs. We never liked tariffs. We never liked taxes in EPP. But of course, we're in a situation now where perhaps one of your favorites, President Trump, he wants tariffs. He wants these taxes. Can you show me another deal that has been made that is better than the one that Europe just have done? And on migration, I must say, on the last mandate, we took responsibility. We made sure that we got a migration pact in place, and now we're taking back control of migration. That is taking responsibility for Europe.
Thank you very much. Mr. Zingaretti, un minuto.
The enemy of Europe is back, and it's among us. It's nationalism. The Union was born to unite Europe, but the policies of governments influenced by nationalism is trying to divide it. That's the truth. They want to dismantle the pillars of the integration process, reducing the budget, a lack of courage on investment and common debt, lack of resolution in foreign policy are all part of this dramatic trend. And when this happens in Europe, the outcome over history has always been the same thing: war. We need unity not just in words, but we need to create territorial cohesion. We need investment and integration and political unity. Madam von der Leyen, you represent the synthesis between a council who is enthralled to nationalist trends and a parliament that is strongly pro-European. This commitment has been weak until today, but history is asking us to change tack, because defending democracy and defending freedom means rebuilding hope in this wonderful project. Thank you.
Tom van den Driesche, 1 minute.
Honourable members, the state of the Union in Europe is terrible, and the current Commission policies appalling. Our citizens are destroyed by competition, our companies stifled by over-regulation, spiralling costs. Our women and daughters are the first victims of illegal migration. Mrs. von der Leyen is an elite and is not familiar with the daily lives of ordinary citizens. The whole world can see how weak, dependent and subjugated the European Union is. We can see that in the uneven trade deal struck with the US. The Commission has no plan, no solutions. We need a radical change of tack. No mass migration, no Green Deal, no European selling off of Europe. Thank you.
Okay, will you take it? Go ahead, Thomas.
Colleague, I was glad to listen to your speech. Can you show us the rational solution finally? So how do you work out an agreement with the United States? What sort of a deal would you do? Show us how you do it. Go there instead of Commissioner Šefčovič and show us how to make a deal with Donald Trump. In your social networks, I often see criticism of the EU. Show me something constructive, something that you have really achieved whilst you were in the European Parliament.
Honourable Member, I would quote Mr. Costa, Council President. Last week he said that this trade agreement is clearly uneven. The focus is on the war in Ukraine. We need a new strategy. We need peace and a strong Europe. Thank you.
Very much. Veronika Vretonova, 1 minute.
Madam President, the European Union is in a crisis it refuses to admit. We are lagging behind our partners in the United States and behind our competitors in China. In many respects, we are no longer leaders of innovation. We are no longer pioneers. We seem to know only to regulate, especially to our detriment. If we want to protect our future in Europe, our future prosperity, we need to stop strangling people and companies. We have to limit ideological regulations such as the Green Deal, and we need to stop thinking that we know best how people should behave and how businesses should do business. If we don't stop doing that, Europe will remain a huge open-air museum where Americans and Chinese will only come to take pictures of castles.
That if you've already asked a blue card, you cannot do it again. So, Mr. González Pons, go ahead, please, Vice President.
Madam President, the world is becoming anti-European, and we must accept that. Our main partner is insisting on tariffs. China is taking advantage of our market to get rid of its industrial surplus, but we can't take a step back. We have to remember the epic spirit that led us to a mass purchase of vaccines in COVID. The new MFF needs to renationalise our common policies. This is a step backwards. Institutions cutting regional policies and help for fishers and farmers. If we don't have European policies, why do we have a European Union? Don't you think it's absurd that member states are sending an envelope with money to Brussels to feed into the European budget, and once that budget has been instituted, they get another envelope back instead of common policies? Madam President, the breach of our airspace by Russian drones is the real state of the Union. There's nothing else. And tomorrow, there is not going to be any other talk of anything else. The era that we're entering means that Europe will only survive if it acts like a country, as a single country. There's no other option. Congratulations on your speech. You know that you can count on us. Your luck will be that of Europe.
Vice President González Pons, and now I give the floor to Javier Moreno Sanchez. 1 minute. And again, if you want to ask a blue card, please press at the beginning of the speech. Otherwise, it comes too late. Please, Javier.
Gracias, Presidenta.
Thank you, President. Mrs. von der Leyen, the European Union is at a tricky juncture. Do we continue to build Europe with pro-European forces, those that supported your candidacy, or do you go along with those looking to unravel the policies you proposed, destroying the Green Deal, the legislation against violence and the digital legislation? We need to tackle the challenges that lie ahead. Young people want to see their rights guaranteed, access to affordable and decent housing. President, allow me to finish with the following message. We want to see peace. So please be on the right side of history, as is Pedro Sanchez's government when it comes to genocide in Gaza. Suspend the association agreement with Israel. You know that the Spanish socialists are determined to continue to defend Europe. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moreno Sanchez, you have a blue card. Will you take it from Mr. Solier? Diego Solier. Go ahead.
Well, I don't agree with much that was said here, but what about farmers, average people, Europeans that are suffering, feel less safe in their own streets, spent months awaiting aid that has not arrived? They are trying to put out fires with their own hands. What is happening to those problems in the European Union? What happens when a member state does not respect the balance of powers? We need democracy. And what happens? What will the European Union do to help us if a government ignores reality?
Sorry, I can't answer because I didn't understand what he said.
We'll have to check the system. It's okay. Thank you, Mr. Solier. Jorge Buxadevil-Alba, 1 minute.
Ms. von der Leyen, 2 hours and 22 minutes. Millions of Europeans are working to pay your salary and for mine and all of yours. You've not given them any respect. Massive, uncontrolled migration, a Green Deal that's devastating the economy, censorship on social media, lack of transparency in business, and over-regulation, climate restrictions on business, inflation, higher taxes, insecurity in the streets, and higher crime than ever. This is the Europe that people are experiencing out there. Europe is increasingly weak. You've been the worst commission in history. You campaigned with Mr. Feijóo in Spain for the European People's Party, and you said that fishers and farmers would come out on top, but you've betrayed them with the Mercosur deal, with the US trade deal, and with a smaller common agricultural policy with even more restrictions. You have taken the benefits and you're not leaving anything for the rest.
1 minute.
Chair colleagues, thanks a lot. The situation in the European Union is no better than it was a year ago during the same debate. Firstly, the EU continues to be the largest importer of gas in the world from Russia, paying billions of euros for it, and at the same time, Russia just this morning attacked Poland, which is a member state of both NATO and the EU, with drones. Secondly, there are still attempts to continue with the climate extremism, which causes enormous damage to the economies, entrepreneurs and consumers of European countries. We are feeling this especially in Estonia, for example. Thirdly, the competence of the EU leadership is depressing. Ms. von der Leyen clearly doesn't understand the situation we are in the world. The situation is even sadder with the EU's top diplomat, our own foreign representative, Ms. Kallas, who only last week made the whole of Europe a laughingstock within the framework of the European Institute of Security Studies, where she showed her infantility by not having basic knowledge of history and not having basic understanding of geopolitics, and all this in terrible English. The people of Europe do not deserve this. They deserve much better.
Thank you very much, Mr. Madison. Now, Zoltan Tar, 1 minute.
Köszönöm a szót, elnök asszony. Tisztelt elnök asszony.
Thank you very much, President of the Commission. Europe is the guarantor for the prosperity of its citizens and a guarantor of fair competition. The head of the Hungarian government, however, is talking about the collapse of Europe, whilst it was he who, before the elections, sent his daughter to live in the West. Many families are struggling to make ends meet. We, in our party, want a competitive Hungary, and so we will lower taxes for working people. Those who earn less will benefit the most from that. We will ensure that Hungary has a European future and that Hungarians can live in prosperity and that we can be a constructive member of the EU.
Let's hope it works now. Okay.
Señor Tar.
Mr. Tar, don't you think it's strange that until now, no speaker on behalf of the EPP that von der Leyen is in has mentioned the paragraph of her speech in the State of the Union about immigration and asylum, which is the topic that most challenges us since the Treaty of Lisbon. She said, yes, we need to make a joint fight against trafficking and their business model. But we also need to meet the Asylum Pact requirements, which requires solidarity between European Union member states. Don't you think that it's strange that the only mention of this came from her speech?
Reply, Mr. Starr.
Thank you for your question. I think we have heard quite enough about how the Commission and how we, the members of EPP, are really trying to do something against so many things against illegal migration. Our chair, Mr. Weber, was also talking about it. So I think there is ample evidence that this is a serious issue, and we are fighting against illegal migration as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tar. René Repazi, 1 minute.
President, Commission President, honourable members. In Scotland, you bent the knee. That was painful, demonstrated that we are weak. That is what defines our position in the world. I'm not trying to criticise Mrs von der Leyen. You have to play the hand dealt to you, but do everything you can to ensure that we can't be bullied in future. I heard the right words here today, but we've heard those same words time and again. We need action more than words. I don't want roadmaps. I want legislation. I don't want lip service. I want to see proper fining of big tech, for example. I want real investment, new investment. Then we can see achievements. Thank you.
Pani Przewodnicząca.
President, once again, Russian drones have violated Polish airspace and our army with NATO forces defended Polish airspace. The Commission, on the other hand, which is responsible for economic security in the Member States, is constantly working against the interests of Europeans, having destroyed European industry and the security of our borders or safety on our streets. Today, food security is under threat. I'm talking, of course, about Mercosur and importing agricultural products from Ukraine. My country, Poland, needs real security, and at the moment your damaging politics in respect to the climate, energy, investment, finance and trade mean that you are more of a burden than a help. The European Union, under Mrs von der Leyen's leadership, is a burden for the member states of Europe. It is a hindrance to security in Poland, and this Commission should resign.
Paolo Cunha, 1 minute.
Thank you very much. We are facing a geopolitical situation that is increasingly complex, and we're being presented with simplistic solutions. Europeans are demanding a clear message, objective, clear actions in Ukraine, peace, whatever it takes, in the Middle East. We see that the humanitarian situation is a constant worry. A two-state solution is sought. The trade deal with the US is limited, but it's better than no deal. And in spite of all of this, we need a solution with no tariffs. And we do see that we are facing a demographic, climate and digital challenge, and a challenge in terms of competition internationally. We can't bend the knee. We have to defend our European model, guarantee the competitiveness of the European Union. We must continue to be responsible, contribute to a more competitive Europe that is fairer and with greater solidarity.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, President. President of the Commission, you've come to tell us this morning that Europe is in an existential fight, and you're right. It needs to be said, Europe is under threat and needs to fight back. But submitting to Donald Trump in Scotland wasn't fighting. Is it fighting to allow Russian funds in our banks? Is it really fighting, allowing TikTok and X to undermine our democracy? Is it fighting to not apply the Digital Service Act? Is it fighting to allow Gaza to be razed? Is it fighting to allow Urban and Fico to trample on human rights in the EU itself? And is an MFF with so little ambition really fighting? Words, 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 Hamlet said in Shakespeare. Well, we need more than words. If you want to turn words into deeds, then we will stand by you, including against the extreme right and against the council. But if it's just a case of fine words, then we're in trouble.
Yes. 1 minute.
The state of our union can be summed up in one word: untenable. Instead of tackling the true problems, the Commission is tweaking and messing around with bottle lids and paper straws. Our citizens are not looking for more Europe, but rather less. Fewer rules, less meddling, and above all, less migration. Without effective returns, then no migration policy is worth the paper it's written on. Those that are not entitled to stay must actually leave. That is the bare minimum. Now, on the multi-annual financial framework, at least 2 trillion, while families are struggling to make ends meet. Brussels is throwing cash around like confetti at a parade. It is irresponsible and divorced from reality. The Dutch people are looking for their money back, quite rightly. Mrs. von der Leyen, you're calling for more money, more EU. But our citizens want less, less, less. And that is the job we're here to do.
Ms. Ellis, you have a blue card. You don't take it? OK. Tom Berenson, 1 minute.
Ja, dank u wel, collega's.
Thank you, honourable members. We live at a turning point in geopolitics. We are seeing the international order under threat. Europe is vulnerable. Mrs. von der Leyen, the huge challenge in the current day is to ensure that Europe is stronger. We need a strong Europe to ensure proper sovereign energy, true competitiveness, and checks on migration. We need Europe to invest in technology of the future, innovation. We need a strong Europe to ensure that our societies and companies can thrive, that we don't have unnecessary red tape. The rest of the world is not waiting for us. We need to take action. Honourable members, despite all our differences, we cannot allow ourselves to be divided. We need to work together, pull together, united in diversity. Thank you.
1 minute.
Mulțumesc, doamna președintă. Doamna președintă von der Leyen.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Welcome, Madam President von der Leyen. The violations of Polish airspace remind us that this has been happening in Romania for 2 years at least. You need to reaffirm your support so that Romanian airspace is protected and unbreachable. There's a great deal of concern in Romania, Ms. van der Leyen, because cohesion funds threaten the achievement of our Romanian regional projects such as water, schools and transport. Lastly, the reduction of the CAP for Romanian farmers, this in practice means that a small farm receiving a payment, it would go straight to the bank, and that's unacceptable. We need to support our farmers in Europe and European consumption. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. And Madam President, second President, your Commission is in office only for half a year. So I guess your speech that was rather analyzing situation and showing the way forward was the proper one. But now time is coming. Not speeches, but the action will decide if we succeed in the battles that you properly describe. In months to come here in the House, we will have to show who has courage and who has the wisdom to do the right things. Difficult files will be on the table, and we should show who is responsible, who is thinking about the future of Europeans, and who is not. We will be voting US agreement, Mercosur, and many others. The Commission should come with important proposals how to improve our economy. We still don't have them, and we badly need them. And again, the time will come, and we will show who is caring about the future of Europeans, about their security, living standard, and who don't. I know that you are on the board. Most of our colleagues are on the board.
Thank you.
Council should be on the board. If we make it, we succeed. If not, we fail.
Thank you, Mr. Niedermayer. Marta Temido, 1 minute.
Obrigada, Senhora Presidente.
Thank you very much, Madam President. President of the Commission, in your speech you said we need to be united. We are united on the priorities, things that will answer the concerns of millions of European citizens. Eurobarometer shows this clearly. I think it's also clear when it comes to Gaza. What we expect is clear. Citizens have chosen peace as a fundamental value, and they want to prioritize security in Europe. So we need freedom to make the choices that will guarantee defense. So how is it possible that the trade agreement with the US includes commitments in respect of military investments? We need to improve living standards. That's always been the promise that European democracies have made to their middle classes. So we have to become more competitive in order to shore up the European welfare state. Why is it we keep trying to put walls up against migration rather than creating legislation? What's happened to the values that we hold dear?
Madam President, what is the State of the Union? Well, Europe is threatened with the end of its history. It's fragile, it's divided. We're seeing poverty in practice everywhere. We are already lagging behind. It threatens our destiny, and it's time to react. This morning in your speech, you announced a lot of new plans and initiatives and documents, but the main thing is that we need to correct the denial and the mistakes that have led us to this situation. You've talked about security. Let's start by stopping mass funding for weapons bought abroad. We don't need to depend militarily from the US. That's the easiest way to not have to suffer this trade blackmail. You talked about the price of energy, but you continue to fund renewables, which just increases our dependence. Let's stop keeping nuclear out of the EU budget, which would allow us to be sovereign and decarbonised. The Court of Justice this morning has confirmed our fight on that plan. We don't need a plan to make small vehicles affordable. We need to abandon the rules about only buying electric vehicles. And you want manufacturers to innovate. Well, you want to get rid of... you're trying to reduce the payments to farmers, and they are not the expendable element when it comes to a Mercosur trade deal. We will do our work in the Parliament to make sure that we can expel people through the returns directive. But after years of your last mandate of reacting to the leftist agenda, which didn't correspond to what most of the centrists in this Parliament and our countries thought, we made a clear choice. And now we need results. Thank you.
Hold on, Mr. Bellamy, you have a blue card from Mr. Rausen. Will you take it? You'll need to press the button and you need interpretation. Press the button. Okay.
Ik heb een vraag aan de heer Bellamy.
I have a question for Mr. Bellamy. He undoubtedly knows that we're still waiting for a special EU representative on freedom of belief. We have heard that this individual will be appointed time and again, but we've not seen action. The European Parliament must ratchet up the pressure to ensure that the Commission appoints a special representative in this area.
Merci, chers collègues.
Thank you, colleague. Yes, I fully support your point. And I was quite surprised to hear, Madam President, this morning that you said that Europe should defend the liberty of faith. I think that freedom is at the heart of European values, and it should be defended by appointing this representative. So we're counting on you for that to be made as quickly as possible.
Andrea Schieder, 1 minute.
Sehr geehrte
Honourable members, President, one of the biggest problems that Europeans face is the cost of living, in particular the cost of housing. Housing should not be a luxury, but a basic right. We need affordable housing to be built. We need an affordable housing plan. We can make a real difference, improve the lives of millions around Europe. Families are forced out of their homes because they cannot afford rent. They are spending more than half their income on rent. Young people aged 35 are still forced to live at home, have to wait to be able to afford to move out. There are children living on our streets. We've heard a lot of promises. This is a central issue. We need action. We need the affordable housing plan. We need tangible measures that must be implemented swiftly. Europeans cannot wait. They cannot afford to wait.
Floor now to Aidan O'Rourke. 1 minute.
Like millions of others in our union, I believe in Europe. Together we believe in a Europe based on social justice, on human rights and on solidarity. A Europe that is a voice for good in the world. President von der Leyen, we do not believe in you. You bow to Trump's bullying. You row back on climate commitments. And for all your rhetoric, you cooperate with the far right. And while a genocide rages in Gaza and Israel rips up international law, your response is pathetic. The partial suspension of the association agreement you announced today is an insult. This is not a partial genocide. 20,000 Palestinian children are not partially dead. This is not the Europe the people of Ireland believe in. This is not the Europe they love. That Europe is one that houses its people, protects our planet, strengthens workers' rights, stands against genocide and defends international law. President von der Leyen, Europe deserves so much better than your presidency.
Thank you. Mr. O'Rourke, you have a blue card from Sean Kelly. Will you take it? No. Okay. Let's do quickly catch the eye. One from each political group in the order that we got them. First one, Bartlomiej Sienkiewicz.
Pani Przewodnicząca.
President, I would like to thank the Commission for solidarity with Poland and for what the Commission has said today. This is an important time. It's the first time that a member state of NATO has been attacked in its own airspace by Russia. Poles will not be scared. We are united. Now, we've heard about conflicts within Poland, but let me reassure everyone here that the President and the Prime Minister are working together in the face of this crisis. They're coordinating their activities, and we cannot be cowered by Russia. We can't be divided either. We, of course, expect support and comprehension. Pressure on Russia is the only way to stop its aggression. Thank you.
Now, Thomas Bayada.
L-istess Ewropa
Europe
u neħlem illum titkellem fuq l-armi milli fuq il-futur ta' binti. Din hija l-vuċi tumża żuha Maltija illi jemnet fil-proġett Ewropew. Imma llum x'qed naraw? Żgħażagħ li jħissuhom minsija, familji li qed jitħallew weħidhom, anzjoni li jridu jażlu bejn ikla u saqaf fuq rashom u istituzzjonijiet li jdawru wiċċhom quddiem.
Young people who feel forgotten, families who are being left alone, elderly people who have to choose between a meal or a roof over their heads, and institutions that turn their backs on genocide and injustice. This is not a Europe that inspires. This is not a union of peace, prosperity and equality. Madam President, look around you. Listen to the voices of our young people who want a Europe that embraces its people and not one that instills fear. A Europe where no one is left behind, where every child has a future, where every elderly person lives with dignity. This is the Europe I believe in, a Europe of peace, of social justice and of hope for each and every one of us.
Now Anna Maria Cisint.
President, today you've been on the high wire trying to keep everybody happy. This is just intentions, but over the last 6 years, you've been at the helm, and the tragic consequences are clear to all. You've talked about reconciling the green transition and defence, bullets and biodegradables. And while you talk about Russia, the threat is already here, the fifth column of Islamists who are crying death to the West. Our strategic project is not just in defence, it's also in industry. By cutting our emissions, you're condemning our businesses and our workers and selling them out to China. You want to defend Europe, or do you want to bow to China just to protect your wobbly majority? Thank you very much, Madam President. After I was elected, I've been following all of your speeches, not just in plenaries. You often mentioned Ukraine, Belarus, Moldova, the US, China, the Western Balkans, Israel-Palestine, Syria, even Hungary and the Green Deal. However, how many times have you talked about the illegal Turkish occupation of Cyprus? Never. What about the people who were displaced or kidnapped? What about the people trapped in a member state? Never. What about the war on Cyprus? Never. What about our religious heritage that's been destroyed? Never. Even today, when there are 5 Cypriots imprisoned in Turkey, you have not said anything. It's time to talk about it.
Helmut Brandstätter.
Thank you, President. Commission President, Mrs. von der Leyen. As an Austrian, let me say the feeling you're talking about the single market. We must build on the single market, yes, but we cannot have a situation where the same goods are more expensive in Austria than they are in Germany. And what about Serbia? I've been to Serbia quite a lot recently. A lot of people there are disappointed in you because you associate yourself too closely with authoritarian President Vučić, rather than standing by the people. Your commissioner is finally standing up, but they have expectations of you. The people expect you to speak out against authoritarian systems. And on Russia, thank you for finally saying that Russian assets belong to Ukraine. But now take action. We need deeds. People need to believe in what we say. And that would be a good move for Europe. Thank you.
Now, Vicente Marza Ibáñez.
Señora Presidenta, yo le quiero preguntar si usted...
Madam President, I wonder if you have called for a motion against yourself, because you've actually been criticising much of what you've done. You're talking about a strong Europe, and then you humiliate us and you bow to Trump. You've talked about climate change, and then you agree on all policies to do with climate change with the denialists on the far right. You've talked about housing, and you've put money into weapons, not housing. The weirdest thing is that you haven't spoken out against a genocide. You've not said anything. You've said that it's not in your competence. And suddenly, today, you had competence to announce partial actions after so many millions of people in Europe have come out on the streets. Being the president of Europe is leading it, not following, like the flotilla that you won't protect. Leading Europe is being consistent and defending its values. For example, behaving the same in Ukraine as we do in Palestine, acting to defend universal rights throughout Europe, and making sure that Europe is free throughout the world.
Please stick to time.
Señora President, Europe is in dire straits. We can see that through your policies that favour the powerful and humiliate the most vulnerable. Today you talked about Europe's independence, but we saw how you humiliated yourself at Trump's private golf course. You left the democratic mandate behind and sold us out. What about the European Social Fund? That is vital to improve people's lives. You are looking to raid it to finance war. We have heard time and again that European citizens can be protected not through missiles but through rights, social rights. And what about the idea of creating a type of Guantanamo Bay for migrants outside Europe? You are persecuting those trying to flee to save their lives. So what about Gaza? It is a genocide that you do not even seem to be able to recognise as such, as a genocide. The microphone has been cut off.
Keep to time, please.
Mehr Druck auf Russland, Sanktionen.
More pressure on Russia, sanctions on Russia, and we're hearing the same old mantra. Mrs. von der Leyen, you can speak, but in the White House you wouldn't even be at the adults' table. Rearmament you're talking about, but you haven't mentioned the word diplomacy. Is that because you were defence minister before? Although none of your sons served in the German army. You're serving the war of the rich against the poor.
Lucas Sieper.
Dear people of Europe, let me begin by thanking the commissioners who work closely on the file. Mr. President, can we repeat my timing?
We can hear only you, Mr. Sieper. Go ahead.
Yes. Herr Jungblut, können Sie jetzt mal aufhören, bitte?
Would you be quiet, please?
Dear people of Europe, I would like to thank the commissioners working closely in my field, especially Commissioner Šefčovič, Commissioner Kos-Marko and Commissioner Labib for their constructive and professional cooperation. Frau Kommissionspräsidentin von der Leyen, for now
Commission President, 1 year ago I had the pleasure of speaking to you for the first time, and I said that I didn't think that you'd been democratically elected, but I hope you could show that that was not a problem. You've now pretty much convinced me. I voted in favour of pretty much all of the Commission's legislative proposals. But now I would encourage you to work better on your PR. Explain more. Strike deals that don't weaken Europe. Call out human rights violations wherever they happen.
Mr. Sieper, I give the floor now to the President of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, to respond.
Very much, Madam President, honourable members. Thank you very much for a very vivid and interesting debate indeed. I was told I spoke 1.5 hours. Sorry, that was long. We had a debate now for 2 hours, but Europe deserves it to have such a debate. And as I said, it was a very interesting and lively debate. We've heard you loud and clear. The College has heard you loud and clear. Very clear was also the challenges that Europe faces, that they are coming in different forms and that they come from different directions. And there can be no doubt about any of that, as we have seen again in the last 24 hours, both here in Europe and across the world. But what was also very clear in this debate here is Europe has agency. Europe has agency. What it now needs in many of the topics is to develop the necessary urgency to deliver. I'm getting tired. If we stay united, we're the ones who can create the conditions for a more prosperous and more secure future. I want to reiterate what I said already in my speech over and over. I will always be ready to work with you to strengthen the pro-European democratic majority. In my view, it's the only majority in this House that can deliver for Europeans. I will always be ready to bridge our differences and find common ground, because it was excellent that we had the debate here today. But democracy is only strong not only if we have debate, but when it decides and when it delivers. And therefore, we can, on one hand, always choose to focus on what sets us apart, but we should make our difference, on the contrary, the foundation for a stronger European home. I think it is easy to say that Europe does not do enough here and does do too much there, but what the majority of speeches from the pro-European democratic forces was, the tone was encouraging, the tone was progress-oriented. You asked, rightly so, for not only words, but deeds. Yes, you're right. The character of a SOTEO, State of the Union, is that we do not only look back on what we have done, but we also sketch the way forward. And of course, at the moment, it is words and not yet deeds. But as I know this Parliament, you will hold me accountable. That is good, because this also shows that Europe is not some abstract entity. Europe is you. Europe is us. Everyone is us. And this, therefore, with conviction, I say, long live Europe. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Now, we'll have the last round of group leaders in reverse order, starting with the ESN, Sarah Knafer. Please stick to time, 1 minute.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Madame von der Leyen.
President of the Commission, we don't expect anything more of you, but you still managed to disappoint us. We had energy crisis and the renewables fiasco. We thought that you would actually question your own policies, but now you're just going further. The loan has become much more expensive, but now you're putting forward an extraordinary budget of 2 trillion. You've lectured us on the rule of law, but now you should be respecting the judgment in respect of Pfizer information. But apparently the law only applies to other people, not to you. After Trump was elected, we thought that your anti-Trumpism would actually lead you to defend European interests, but you gave in without a fight. And now you're going to sign Mercosur agreement whilst at the same time over-regulating our own products. Looking at you, I really don't think you even understand what I'm trying to say. You will never change. You're an ideologist, you're a technocrat, and you will stay those things. The only thing that Europeans are expecting from you now is your resignation.
Madame Aubry, you can speak from your seat. Wait, it's coming. Yeah. No, wait. Should be on. Okay.
Madame von der Leyen, it's been a year since you were re-elected to the head of the European Commission. 1 year too many. Over that time, you've committed irreparable damage. Your speech cannot mask reality. Yes, you have become complicit in the genocide of the Palestinian people. You've taken no real sanctions. And your announcement today changes nothing, because faced with the genocide, there can not be half measures. Yes, you've bowed to Trump's trade blackmail, and you've signed the worst Mercosur free trade deal in history. You've affected us with austerity that takes from the poor to give to the rich, and you've backtracked on green measures. and you want to stay another year. You should leave over the course of this year with your entire Commission. It's not just our group asking for it. 60% of European members and citizens as well. And we will put a confidence vote against you for your inaction on the genocide in Gaza.
Bas Eickhout. Microphones are tired. Yeah.
Yes.
1 minute.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you once again. Let's just go back 1 year. The political guidelines that you published in July last year, they were very balanced. But we have to say, over the last year, we have been disappointed in what was implemented of those political guidelines, because the focus was very much on defense, Ukraine, and deregulation. And especially on the latter one, it was deregulation. What you do to the due diligence proposal is deregulation, has nothing to do with simplification. Your tone now in the State of the Union is different again. You promised differences, but now we really want to see that you deliver on that. It boils down to real implementation, real proposals, and then you can find us, because we are very well aware. We want to work on security, on competitiveness, but in a broader definition, and we will work with you. Thank you for making also very clear that you want to work with the pro-Europeans. But I do think, and you still have 1 minute, Manfred Weber, use that wisely with whom you want to work.
I give the floor now to Valérie Hayer. 1 minute.
Merci.
Thank you. I have a minute. Earlier, I outlined my political group's priorities. Now, something struck me in the course of this debate, the hypocrisy on the far right of this chamber. Today, the far right has preached to us about Donald Trump forcing tariffs on us, forcing us to buy US goods, sabotaging our economy. Who are you kidding? You were first in line to support Donald Trump to spread MAGA propaganda here in Europe. If you are really concerned about your voters and European citizens, then start by no longer spreading misinformation for Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. You claim to defend European people. You're actually betraying them.
I give the floor now to Asita Kanko.
Dear President von der Leyen, the truth is that the left killed the Draghi report before your plane even took off and then blamed you for standing by the corpse. The public remains anxious all over Europe and angry. We see it today here in France. People worry about transparency, security, respect for the European values, a more powerful voice at the international stage, protection for their businesses, justice and law enforcement, a realistic migration policy. To address these concerns, we cannot afford to be blindsided, cowards or hypocrites. So, was your speech an appropriate answer today? I have some doubts. I heard a lot of new initiatives. Some of it sounded like more bureaucracy to me. You smuggled the deregulation agenda in there, but it seemed like you had to hide it from the socialists. You are afraid to lose their support. You accept their blackmail. Why? A centre-right majority is possible in this House. A majority that will reduce red tape, a majority that will protect our citizens, a majority that will set the innovative powers of our private sector free. The future of Europe cannot be secured with the left, but with the centre-right.
Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to Kinga Gál. 1 minute.
President, we expect you to see democracy upheld and that sovereignty be maintained, that values be respected. And that the rule of law be upheld. The Patriots Group want answers to the urgent questions that we're faced with. Why is Europe weaker than it used to be? Why are children and citizens in worse conditions than before? Instead of giving us answers, you've answered with a warmongering ideology. Instead of offering answers, the Commission has become part of the problem. You have to resign. We need a new Commission, President. That's what the Patriots Group is expecting from you.
I give the floor now to Irache Garcia Perez.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I hope that this debate will be useful for the European citizenry, and as such, I'm not going to talk about Mr. Weber, and I'm going to focus on the proposals put forward by President von der Leyen. I'd like to say to her that on behalf of the Socialists and Democrats group, we are going to be vigilant and constructive. Today, you've mentioned many of the proposals that we put forward, but they should not just be an announcement to allow for a good climate in today's debate. It has to be the real agenda for the European Commission for the coming months. We want a time frame, we want legislative proposals, we want budget, which not much has been said about that today. We really want to see political will to build something. Europe was built by the cooperation of pro-European forces and on the back of social democracy. We are not going to shirk responsibilities, but we're not going to be hostages to those who want to steal our values, our ideals and our proposals. So let's continue working with responsibility.
The floor now to, as last speaker, to Jeroen Lenners.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Thank you, President von der Leyen, for setting out your clear vision today, and also for reminding us that also in this House sometimes we are so busy with debating the small print that the world is writing a new chapter without us, and Europe simply cannot afford this. At a time of war on our continent, of increased global competition, we need to respond with unity and with responsibility. And yes, only the pro-European democratic forces in this House can achieve this together. But for all the attacks from the Socialists, the Liberals and the Greens today on this issue, we are still waiting for a real commitment on delivering in this agenda. And for us, this is the autumn of truth. Do you choose a competitive Europe, cutting red tape and driving innovation, or do you choose a Europe drowning in bureaucracy and trade war, putting at risk the livelihoods of millions of people? Do you choose a Europe... Well, I was interrupted, Madam President. Do you choose a Europe that properly manages migration, protects our border, or do you keep dragging your feet on the proposals that have already been put on the table by this Commission? The EPP... Can you wrap up, please? Can you wrap up? I lost at least 20 seconds because of the booing, Madam President. The EPP chooses a strong and competitive Europe, and we extend an open hand to all pro-European forces to do it together. But we need more than nice words. We need actions for delivering for our citizens.
Thank you very much. That's it. The vote is done. Thank you. This is indeed very interesting and very lively. We have the votes next.